Welcome to another special marching edition. Yours truly, rock and roll for the firefighters, plumbers, electricians, bakers, butchers, nurses, doctors, and firefighters, doctors, electricians, those daycare workers changing some diapers. Always for the plumbers that riding on that bike, my uncle there, and of course all the other workers on the field now who are involved, in the production, distribution of food. And yeah, it's a bit moody, slightly, not too moody now. I guess I'm feeling much better, but I had a lot to do. I was so busy and just busy cleaning and sending some emails and just staying busy. I guess it's always a little bit of that good rock and roll. And here you gotta turn your heads left and right. Sometimes they come by the other side and you get of course the transmissive side of the things where we got, and you gotta get on that go for the safety, public safety. It's always something what you got to look out for in all the dimensions where we are now, involved in all the dimensions of our societies. We got added responsibilities, duties, and obligations, which of course are not under the normal circumstances of life. They're not, of course, the same as if I would have stayed inside, if I would have stayed in, and if I would have stayed inside the house, my household, it would have been different, It would have been different, of course, to get going like that, and that's just something what we have to get doing now. I wish I could fill this fridge up, just one day, just fill it up with all the goods, and that's that rock and roll. And that's something what we gotta do here, just fill it up, and just gotta get doing like that, and we gotta get it on the go with that, and of course for the left, for the right, in the middle, and all that circumstantial, of course, where we are now, to be on the side of the street. Turn your heads left and right, always turn your heads to make sure you get it on the go, and it's something which we have, of course, to be prudence, extra diligence, because you never know, the brakes malfunction. What if the citizen driver presses the accelerator instead of the brake? So I gotta wash my hands now a bit with disinfectant because, microbes, bacteria, germs, I don't know, of course, how many, of course, touched the fridge, and how many, of course, got on the dimensions, of course, of the germs, bacteria, and microbes, and all that, So I'm just gonna take my own disinfectant and just gonna go in the sun a little bit here. So in 4, 3, 2, 1, let's reach for it. And let's put it into practice. You got a little bit of disinfectant with that, and see, gonna take 4 steps to get out of the way, and then 4 steps back to the right and to the left, because I calculated out my fellow citizen there with the baby carriage, for her security and their security and mine, to just take a few steps, because I got that backpack, so I'm pretty wide on the feet as I'm marching, and whenever there's carriages, I always take a few steps for the security of others, just like driving. If I would be driving a bigger vehicle, then I would be applying the same principles, and just gonna disinfect, Got a hand sanitizer, because, I touched the handle of the fridge, and, I don't know how many people touched it before, so I'm just gonna apply this antiseptic hand sanitizer just to keep the protocols of COVID, super important, to keep the protocols of COVID that they were kept. And of course, you never know, right? You never know all those dimensions where we are now involved. You gotta use this hand sanitizer, So this hand sanitizer is a bit on that go rock and roll. So that is just something what we have now, to use a little bit of that antiseptic, because I clinged on the handle for like 4 seconds, and it's enough to get some microbes, bacteria, and germs on the hands, So let's get that clean. Oh yeah, feels good. It's viscous. 10 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. That's another 4 seconds with that, and that's just how we are, with the rock and roll, and that's just how we gotta get it doing with that, and that's just something where we are now, in the position, of course, in the fundamental positions where we are to be together, and then take individual action for the collective, the individual and the collective. So Yeah, even smells of fresh. But it kills all bacteria, germs, and microbes if there were any, or how many there were, because there were some for sure. But you never know the personal hygiene, and that's why in the public, I adhere to the public hygienic protocols that were in place since COVID and during COVID, which I had and I survived back, of course, in 2020, between February and March 2020. What a beautiful blue there. And you know how I go on these freestyle rock and roll marches, and always including the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the firefighters, the plumbers, truckers on the road. I'm just financially stressed. I was a bit moody, but now I feel much better. My moodiness went away is with gratitude. I said my gratitude and grateful, thankful. My rent's paid my rent for the month of September. It's September 9th today. Paid my rent, paid my electricity bill to hydro, and one more bill to pay in the coming weeks. The coming weeks I still gotta pay my cell phone bill. Cell phone's still on the list, and we're gonna get on that. We're gonna budget a bit, see of course the budgeting of the rest of the month, because fundamentally it's just to pay the phone bill, and just paying the phone bill and just getting the rent. The rent's paid, the rent's paid, the electricity bill's paid. The only bill I got left to pay is the phone bill, my phone bill. Besides the phone bill, of course, is gonna be the added cost for just eating, just food security. And that's about it. And the rest sanitation I got the other day. I got a little bit of that good sanitation. It was a good sanitation for the sanitary measures, which of course was that good sanitation. And hygienic products I got. I think I got enough toilet paper. I think I got at least 2 more. And toothpaste I got on $1. That was on special, because I'm glad I got it on special over the weekend, because that was the great prices when I saw the prices increasing of toothpaste from $3.99 to $4.40 to the prices that were in the $3, $2.99 range, $3.49, $4, $4.99. Now they went up to $6, $7, and $8. I never seen that on those specific toothpastes in a store here. I was like alarmed, so I'm glad I got these ones, which are the regular ones, on $1. So I bought 4. I wanted to get 6, but I had to do that budget, and I took 2 off, so I got on 4. But 4 should last me at least until November, at least until November. So at least for September, October, 2 months, 6 weeks, 2 months, 4 tubes, and I still got plus the other one that I got left over from that one, so I'm good to go with that. So basically, financially, budget-wise, my only concern now is the pay my phone bill, because the rest for food, I got that fridge there, and sometimes the fridge has food, right? So today it didn't have any, but one time I got some, and I get money myself, and I'm always open for business. I'm gonna be open for business, and I'm gonna fill it up myself. I just want to fill it up once with cake and some whatever I can, some bagels and some cheese and some fruits and some food items, some good food items. Sometimes I take way more than I put nowadays. But hey, that's just financial stress. To me, the problem is, encountering and the problem to maintain regular employment for myself is, of course, due to this neurological mental condition known as Asperger's. Living with this HFA, it's called high functioning autism. It was merged, of course, the HFA was merged within the Asperger's neurological mental divergent condition. So this ASP traits, of course, make us that we have, of course, the characteristics where we are weird and awkward, and of course we are strange on the matter that be, of course, on the plurality, on the go, of course, in all the circumstantial, where we are different. And so this difference, of course, is, of course, this differential aspect where we are now, of course, involved in all the situational aspects, of course, to be that we are different and we're neurodivergent, and of course all the matters at hand are this neurodivergent is impeding for people with Asperger's like myself. He's impeding the proper, of course, conduisance of all the civilizational complex, which it is. which it is. And that's just what it is now, you know, and that's just what it is for the go, you know. And that's where we are in this complex situation, where of course now the dynamic says, look at that, that's it for security. Some child might put the leg, so a child might get his leg stuck there. So we got a lot of arbeit, we got a lot of work to do. And I'm all about work, but in my situation the work is, I am different. Aspies, we're different, right? And so this difference, we have to draw the line that we're not bad, we're not negative, we're not evil, we're not malicious. We're just different. But this difference is not negative, bad, malicious, or evil, or bad, or malicious, or negative, evil. Those words we have to refuse, categorically refuse. Categorically refuse. So we have to categorically refuse that as aspies. As individual aspies, of course, as individual aspies, as individual aspies, we look, another one, see? That one can be dangerous. So as individual aspies, part of course, myself of this tiny small collective community, we have to of course draw the line, you know. So we have, that's where the line has to be drawn between, and making the appellation that of course it is the situation that we have to live with, where we are different. And this difference comes, of course, stems from these mutations of the brain. And due, of course, to these mutations of the brain, we are different. And of course, this difference makes us that we see the world differently, right? So we see the world differently, and thus we will always see the world differently. And thus we have to build bridges, whether we build small bridges, big bridges, or whatever the sizes of the bridges that we build. Small, medium, extra large, or large. Right, so whether we build those bridges, large bridges, extra large bridges, and of course all the bridges which we build, we have to build them in consequence. So for example, I give you an example, in terms of the impediment of the workspace. Of course, the Asperger population, the work is 80%, right, is 80%. 80% is unemployment, right? 80%, right? 80% of Aspies are unemployed. Think about that for a second. So just make the dynamic in the consequential prudence. And don't mention me, people who have Asperger's, who's Elon Musk, who builds satellites. Elon Musk is one of those very rare ones, right? He had support, and he had support. I think they got the message a bit, eh? Right? I think this important message is to give across that Asperger's is not bad, is not negative, is not evil, is not malicious, right? It's not bad, it's not malicious, it's not negative, right? That's where the lines have to be drawn. That's where the lines have to be drawn. See another one, making a citizen public security assessment. This for children running. Here a child, well, it's a parking lot, but you shouldn't. But if you can go with a bike. So this, you bring the bike and you cause an accident and you cause harm. So we got a lot of work to do. We got an Imperial Republican, always for the 63. We got to rebuild the potholes. We have to rebuild, of course, all the potholes and all the civilizational complex of the North American collective. Right? So whatever the case that is, with that specific pothole, there's thousands, if not hundreds of thousands across the 63, always for the 63 where we are now. Of course, in the congruent situation of the complex of the situational awareness is that we have work to do. And I'm all about work pretty much. But my suffering, struggling has been living with this neurological mental divergent condition. And I'm one of those halves, 50%, which is not officially diagnosed, but I've been diagnosed for, I think, 9 years now by different individual citizens, several who have experience with autistic people, who have experience with people with Asperger's, have experience with the healthcare system. But I don't want to accept it for years and years and years and years. For like 6 years, I didn't want to accept it. For 6 years. Only during COVID, about 3.5 years ago, I got to get a gratitude. Thank you to my anonymous friend who gifted me 2 books on autism, which have chapters on Asperger's, and one specific book which I recommend to all, which really opened my eyes to my own vulnerabilities and helped me from that point on, because I read it. It was a loan. It was a library loan. It wasn't a gift, but I want to buy it if I find it. It's called when I can afford it financially. That's my only stress now, financial. It's called Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome. Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome. Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome. Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome is a great book for Aspies and neurotypicals and neurodivergents alike. So the line has to be drawn that we are different but not evil, N-O-T, not evil, not bad, not negative, not malicious, right? Those have to be rejected categorically. We are different but not bad, not evil, not malicious, not negative, not bad, not malicious, not detrimental, right? We are just different. Our brain has these tiny microscopic mutations internally at the brain. They're not, of course, visible, outwardly protruding outside of the cranium, but they're internal, at the internal microscopic level, several variations at the brain level, right? I like that red and white go well together like that. And of course, due to these differences, the way we process certain information sometimes is very different than the neurotypical population, of which you constitute 99%, vis-a-vis us, who constitute, we're about less than 1%. So only half of officially, only half, about 50% of people with Asperger's have an official diagnosis. So that means that the actual numbers is about double. So the diagnosed population stands at about 0.44%. So if you double that, that's 0.88. So it's even less than 1%. That's why it's not common. A lot of people don't even know what it is. It's this neurodivergence, and the way we communicate and we interpret the social aspect of social communication, social interaction can be very difficult. For example, knowing when somebody is interested, knowing, when to stop discussing a certain subject, when to depart, when to end the conversation. These we have to be told more directly, and ourselves sometimes when we're asked questions, we're sometimes direct, and sometimes rude and straightforward, but seemingly rude. But of course, when I serve, I like to serve, I cultivate politeness. Rainbow Dragon is that priestess or goddess as well. So that is something which, of course, I love to do. So that is something which I love to do in the situational complex. That love is also a different type of love so Aspies we love, of course, there's different types of love. So this love can be manifested sometimes in different ways and manners. But this mannerisms, of course, can be, peculiar to people who are neurodivergent or who have Asperger's or autism generally, because we have these strange ritual-like routines and movements of the body. And sometimes we have these awkward, more body movements, sometimes clumsiness. Clumsiness sometimes is a part of our being. That's beautiful. Somebody painted that now. I think it's new. I like that combination of colors like that. I like multicolor. I think it's nice. Here, I like to pass by this. Yesterday we went by my second home, the Mount Road, but it's Hawk Island, Montreal is an island, N.A.C.W.P. So that is just how we are engaged, of course, in conversation. Sometimes you see certain differences, and of course, these differences are how we process social knowledge, that unwritten social rules, and that come easy for the majority of the population, more than 99%ers, you neurotypicals, with which I, myself, and us, Aspies and autistics, we have to build bridges, whether we build small bridges, medium-sized bridges, large bridges, or extra-large bridges. Just like when you order coffee or fries, you might order a small cup of coffee or fry, a medium cup of coffee or fry, a large cup of coffee or fry, or extra large. Within those four categories, there are subcategories, right? There are subcategories. There are subcategories. So within those subcategories, look at these beautiful yellow flowers. You know, I got a thing for yellow flowers and I love the rock and roll, like the shower with the golden sun as I roll. Yeah, look at these. These are, of course, beautiful on the go, and that is some things which we have, of course, to get on that dynamic when the comprehension of these beautiful yellow flowers. And there it is, gorgeous, gorgeous looking flowers. Oh yeah, and made it to the top. Look, from the bottom to the top. I've been rock bottom, been depressed, been suicidal. My only stress now is financial. Look at that beautiful flower. It's so beautiful here. I'm gonna smell it, see if it smells. Oh, I'm no longer moody. This quadrupled my smile times 4. Oh, lemony type of smell. Kind of nice. And all these yellow flowers here, I just love them. And these are beautiful. You know, from my past videos for years and years and years, if you see in my videos, you see that when it comes to yellow flowers, there's just a little bit of a special inclination. Although red, that scarlet crimson is my favorite color, but I just love yellow flowers, you know. I love red and all color flowers, but as when it comes to flowers, I got an inclination for yellow. Although red, as I'm wearing, is my favorite color, you know. Backpack and hat and backpack, and the fourth one is the, can't see, but is the cell phone, the case, cell phone case. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on Asperger's. I'm just going to finalize, because it's important to understand fully that some things are just the way that it will be, because there's no, you can't medicate Asperger's, right? You cannot, it's not a disease, Asperger's. It's not a disease, it's not a disease, it's not a disease. I'm not a disease. I remember when I was working a few years ago during COVID and people were whispering in French, you know, c'est une maladie, that's translation is, that's a disease. Well, it's not a disease, it's just we perceive the world differently, right? So it's hard for us to make friends and keep friends long term. It's hard for us to maintain long-term employment. And we are disproportionately touched by isolation, self-harm, bullying also. Abuse, Aspies can be abused also because of this difference, right? But we have our strengths. We have certain strengths which are usually revolved around, paradoxically, we have what are called special interests, also known as obsessive interest, but I don't use neither the word symptom nor obsessive because they don't render justice to what Aspies we really are. And even a few years ago, a documentary came out according to the ABC, Asperger's is actually constitutes an evolutionary process. So I don't know about that. Supposedly it's a step towards mankind's evolution, because I certainly suffered, and you know, with Aspies, if it's 80%, more than 80% unemployment, that's more than 4 out of 5. So for us, Aspie, we're a tiny small community, right? But the unemployment is 11 times higher than for you, the 99%, the neurotypicals, 11 times higher. Right, so we're different, and our communication is different, and our brains are different, and our sort of this psychic, mental, energetic levels are different. This psychic level energetics are different because our brain processes information differently. And some Aspies, not all, this is about 20-25% here. Not all Aspies are genius in computers, by the way. Some are indeed. Some Aspies can perform well in science, mathematics, logic, and computer science disproportionately, yeah. But again, you have the paradox that many Aspies, that the dropout rate, including myself, I have a high school diploma. I dropped out of college, but I don't remember that far back. My memory is blackout, retrograde amnesia before. My memory, I have problem remembering my life prior to February 2014. I used to live in a very small, moldy place. It was full of MOLD, full of mold, and it was underground in the basement. It was like in a basement, and I didn't even have a kitchen. The kitchen was in the room, you know? The kitchen was in the room. So the whole kitchen was in the room, right? The whole kitchen was in the room. The whole kitchen was in the room. The kitchen was in the room, you know. The kitchen was actually in my room, small on the island of Montreal. You know. I don't even know when I got these tats. Canada, Fleur de Lis, Freedom, and I guess the goddess Venus. I have information because I kept journals, so I have some information. I don't have a birth certificate. Whatever the case may be, you know, and something which from my journals that I wrote. But besides that, of course, it's prior to February 2014. I have trouble remembering my life. February 2014. But that's a long time ago, because now we're September 9th, 2015. So February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September. So that's more than 11 years and 6 months ago. So I don't know if before 2014, if I was a junkie, you know, maybe I was doing hard drugs, maybe I was an alcoholic, and I gotta watch out for certain dogs. Their fur is thick and thickness of the fur, and it just makes me sneeze, you know. And of course, if there's children, sometimes it's good, of course, if it's good if we have, of course, a little bit of if we have on them a little bit of a muzzle, you know. If they're dogs, they have a little bit of a muzzle, you know. So now, see how my brain now functions. Of course, my brain now functions in a manner, of course, that we are, of course, procedurally, of course, to be. Aspies, you're gonna know how my Aspie brain works now. You see, I count four trucks, although I see them blurred. I know that they're going west. Okay, now I'm gonna count more, but from this perspective here, the range of vision, I see 4. Now I know they might be carrying bacon, they might be carrying romaine lettuce, they might be carrying milk, they might be carrying bread, they might be carrying etc, 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 all sorts of food and goods which are vital for the North American collective. But this point event in time, I interject them and I put them, this point event with me meditating on the trucks, and all the truckers of the 63 always for the 10, the 50 and the 53 for Canada, United States joined, because I was born in the United States 3 times post 76, once as a man, twice as a woman. Many past lives I was born a man, a woman, a woman, a man, a woman, a man. You get that 50-50 now. I'm androgynous, pansexual, part of the neurodivergent and LGBTQ community. You're black, you're white, you gotta be 18 plus, you want to LOVE, we rock and roll. And of course they're going west, right? Because I'm heading towards the sun, towards west. And of course now, at this point event, I'm trying to estimate all the goods that are now being transported coast to coast, ocean to ocean, Canada, United States included. And that I know the fact that mostly because of the DMAA, get acquainted with my DMAA theory, philosophy, and working protocol, which has to be implemented across NATO Collective, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization member collective, NATO complex of the 63, plus the 30, because we're 32 countries in NATO, NORAD is Canada, United States, but of course extending it beyond with our collective security alliance of NATO, and Sweden is the newest one. That of course we have these vulnerabilities now because of these alliances that are formed that could potentially harm our supply chains. And most of our supply chains are, see, there's the railway and the trucks. Two Coca-Cola, I never seen 2 in a row. Please give some charity, Coca-Cola, reduce the costs. Give it for the Dragon Army Mass Public-Private Partnership. I want my Dragon Army, coast to coast, ocean to ocean mobilization to have access to food, soft drink, hotels, motels, and transport 24/7, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, for total security, total service, total defense, to fuse the RCMP with the FBI, and to, of course, mass finance healthcare, mass finance the rebuilding of the infrastructure, mass finance as a massive public-private partnership. Don't be so selfish, millionaires, billionaires, to put some work, to get some work done, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. We got a lot of work, and we got to convert it into service. So those trucks are carrying some goods. Those are corporate Coca-Cola. Please give some charity, support women's sports, NFL, NHL, and BMLB sport, the DGA. Reduce the ticket costs because it's mass financial stress, including myself. But of course, they're vital for our collective, right? Our collective. Civilizational complex. When I refer to the collective, is the collective North American civilizational complex, of which Canada, United States were our collective. I'm going to get into that. I just want to show you, demonstrate how my Aspie brain works differently, because now I do a deep, semi-philosophical, part mathematical, part political, part security analysis, right? Of not just this segment of a part of a transportation logistic part of North America, of both Canada and United States, which at this point in time we gotta salute the truckers, the firefighters, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, train conductors, those construction workers, because of course they're of course transporting all across the collective North American civilization. They're of course transporting that rock and roll, a lot of goods now, and of course we gotta situate ourselves in the present moment to of course also meditate that there's much more which is being transported now, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. There's much of course needed which is being transported now, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. So of course being that is transported coast to coast, ocean to ocean, that is of course the situational awareness of this transportation and the mode of course to be of the transportation now that they're of course going with so many goods across the North American collective. They're transporting so many goods, of course, across the North American collective, right? So many goods they're transporting now, and those goods are vital for the North American collective civilizational complex across us to be transported, and that's what we got to be doing, you know, the civilizational collective where we are now. So this brain functioning, this brain method, our brain is different. So we view the world differently, but we have our strengths. We have our strengths. So this strength, of course, relies, of course, on this brain being different and, of course, how we see the world. So now, of course, continuing the calculation is, of course, all these calculations which we have now are, of course, underpinning all the situational awareness for all these complex, of course, environmental factors which we have of the dynamic. And all this dynamic is, of course, the societal dynamic that we are now at a great risk of foreign powers taking advantage of our vulnerabilities and striking us right. And of course, this is the vulnerable aspect, part of other vulnerabilities, just like myself. Thank you, anonymous friend, for gifting me that book, Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome, which has opened my eyes to see how I'm vulnerable myself because I am different. And I remember I have to go retrieve the archives. I was viciously attacked by surprise. I survived a vicious surprise attack. I was hit in the head a few times and hit my head on the concrete in the Montreal metros. It was a transportation hub, public transportation in Montreal on the island. I was bloodied up, and I went to the Jewish General Hospital because my right arm, right shoulder was dislocated, and I wanted to go. They cracked it back there at the emergency, and I was put on some meds. So I got to retrieve at the archives. I hope it's still there, but it's probably years and years ago. As I said, my memory, which is a long time. I have a very, very good memory of the past 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years. But then before like February 2014, I just remember I was living in that moldy place. Very moldy, very small. I didn't even have a bathtub. I'm grateful that I have a bathtub now, I'm grateful that I have a bathtub now, I'm grateful that I have a bathtub now. I can take baths, of course, to bathe in, and that is just something which we have now, So that's always grateful. I have a bathtub now, so that's always nice. I can take a bath. I wish I could afford a massage therapy session, and unfortunately I can't, but millionaires billionaires, who deserves it more? Those who pick up the garbage, the public workers, the garbage collectors, those who pick up the garbage, the recycling, the compost, all those who pick up the garbage, the compost, and the recycling, all those pick up the garbage, the compost, the recycling, of course, those are, of course, the ones who deserve it more than yours truly. Public workers, in other words, are the 63. So that's just the ASP brain functions in a different manner, and we view the world differently. We have these differences which can be awkward, sometimes focusing on certain details, and for example, certain numbers that are written on labels, small print, and things of that nature, which can seem very odd, We can be odd, bizarre, strange, weird, awkward, bizarre, strange, but not bad, evil, negative, malicious. No, we are just different, and we have our struggles, we have our characteristics and traits, and we have what kind of these routines, you know. So I'm gonna continue wrapping up on the trucks, and then get back to Asperger's, finalize on the Asperger's. So see these trucks, they're going, they're going west, the other ones are going east. So this is an east and west. But now we have highways that are going east, that are going west, that are going north, that are going south. So some of them are going east, some of them are going west, some of them are going south, some of them are going north, some of them are going west, east, north, south, around about the 4 directions, or maybe making a circle if they have to turn the other way. Or 180 maybe degrees, or 180, 360, whatever the case is. But they might carry so many goods. Maybe some of those goods are somehow going to end up on my table, and the new table that I'm building of the Imperial Republic, always for the 63, for a mass public-private partnership, with first and foremost laying the foundations with some sunshine. Sunshine is the second day of the full moon, ends tomorrow, is the 40-day rite, ends tomorrow, and we begin one on September 11th till the month of Scorpio. That's going to be a full Mont Blanc to the mountain, and always for the firefighters, the butchers, the truckers, the nurses, and the doctors, the grocery store clerks, and all those involved in the production, distribution of food, you know, all those involved in the production, distribution of food, all that arbeit. And this civilization is a privilege. Just think about it, eh? This whole civilizational complex is a privilege. For us to have running water, electricity, these highways connecting us, the logistics, and of course everything that's coming in is either from, it could be from Mexico as well, by the highways and the trains, because we got the trains there parallel, or it could be by the ports and the airports. That's why my new Dragon 911 Total Citizen Integrated Security Service and Defense Protocols and Initiative, which is massive public-private partnership, part of the Dancing Goddess and the Dragon Kingdom umbrella, which is fundamentally a mass public-private partnership across the 63, the North American Collective. And of course that is just how we have, of course, to do and to appellate, and of course to just congregate in the similitude of all the progressive nature where we are now, to be involved with all the dynamics of everything that exists and everything that's coming in or going out, because we have export and import in Canada, United States, across the 63s, either by the airports through Mexico, right, or by the airports or by the ports of Montreal, PORT, by those vessels, those ships, right? That's the way most of the goods coming in and going out are by water, by the Pacific or the Atlantic. And today I'm celebrating 8 years since I crossed Canada coast to coast in August and September, you know. August I went to BC, British Columbia, Vancouver, and September I went to Halifax, Nova Scotia, and that event changed my whole life. Before that event I was depressed, I was suicidal, I was depressed, and I was suicidal, and you know, that's got me out of being depressed, got me out of being suicidal, and I think I should apply a little bit of sunscreen. I'm just gonna go drop off a little bit of that garbage, and I think I'm gonna apply some sunscreen as we're gonna go in the sun, right about it, and gonna ride it in that sun, and then come right about it. So of course that is the situation. And make sure you put it, if it goes in the garbage it goes here, in the recycling it goes there, because often I see them intermixed, you know. So that is just something what we have to do, and you know, make the public sanitation is something which we have, of course, to of course be aware of all the public, to be of course safe, and to be that sanitation, and to be on that good loving with that. And that is just something which we have to be. And I'm just gonna apply some sunscreen there, and we're gonna go head up towards the sun, and always getting that working out and training. You gotta get a little bit of that training with it, and gotta get a little bit of sunscreen. I'm grateful that I got this, and I guess it requires today, so gonna put some sunscreen. Oh yeah, good. I guess we're gonna get a tan today. You know. That's just how it is with that, and that's just how we rock and roll, you know. That's just the drill, you know. That's just what it is with that, and that's what it is with the goal, man. I'm gonna put some on the face as well. Super important to put it on the face, and gonna do a little bit of stretching and get a little bit of that foundation to get drilling on that. And that's just something what we have, of course, to do now in all the informational space. Oh yeah, gotta put it in because it's really a nice day today. It's hotter than yesterday, so a little bit of sunscreen, we gotta get that go, you know, and that's what it is with that, and that's what it is for the rock and roll, man. Always for the go now. And yeah, whenever I work out, I always feel much better. I lost between 80 and 93 pounds, and that's what it is with that. I lost between 80 and 93 pounds, you know. How much I lost? 80 and 93, but actually in between 80 and 93 pounds, you know, so that's what I lost with that. And I started my fitness journey back, of course, in 2017. After I got out of my depression, I was depressed, suicidal, you know, depressed and suicidal, and that's just what I got. And now we're gonna put it on the go now. And yeah, now we got it on the go. Just salute the ambulance drivers. Get out of the way of the ambulance drivers. And if you hear, of course, the ambulance, just gotta get out of the way and slow down your cars. If you hear the ambulance, if you hear the police, slow down and rock on and just go prudently. And encouraging all to work out today and celebrating 8 years since I got out of depression. I was depressed, I was suicidal, and I got out of my depression. And usually we go by that way, like that. I think today we're just gonna go into the sun and then come back. So basically we're gonna take another route than we usually do, because usually most of the routes we take are, of course, that way. So most of the routes we take are that way, like that, and the other routes are, we're gonna change a little bit. I guess we're gonna go in the sun, although we could kind of stay the same pattern because I think we're gonna get some sun anyways. But just because I feel like doing it a bit differently today, maybe sometimes you just gotta switch up a bit. You know, we're Aspies, we have these routines, we have these ritual-like routines, and those ritual-like routines, I'm not too opposed or reticent or resistant to change, because I changed 4 times in the past 11 years. But of course my memory, like I said before, 2014, spring 2014 is on that blackout, so I have trouble with, I don't remember my life prior to 2014. I don't know, like I said, if I was an alcoholic, maybe I was drinking so much, maybe I was an alcoholic, maybe I was a junkie. I just remember I have this trauma, I guess PTSD, and sometimes alcohol or drugs can cause memory loss. I have a very, very, very good memory just before my life prior, but that's a long time ago, 2014, about before February 2014 about. So before February 2014, I have trouble remembering my life, which is already 11 years ago. 11 years and 6 months. So sometimes I guess we live with what we live, and I guess I healed a lot, and in the past years I accepted my difference because I didn't want to accept it. I didn't want to accept it because Asperger's is still, there's a lot of work that has been done in the 21st century, but there's still some stigma attached of this difference, and it's a lot of confusion and misunderstanding that it's a disease, that it's evil or bad or negative. It's not that it's evil, bad or negative. No. Nothing to, there's categorically reject that designation and characterization as evil, as bad, as negative, as malicious, right? Categorically. And it's not a disease, but it is a difference. So this difference, of course, you can see it in the way we process information. Or what's hard for Aspies is the social aspect, right? And I love people, to be honest, and I have no antagonistic, resentful feelings towards you, the neurotypical population, but you know, it's just consent. And if you're 18 plus, we can rock and roll. You're black, you're white, you're a man, you're a woman, you know. I lust, I'm not sexually frustrated. I would have discussed it if I was. And sexual healing and liberation with consent, 18 between consenting adults, because that's between adolescents. They gotta be taught their sexual education between themselves. You know, if 16 with 16-year-olds and 15 with 15-year-olds, or 17-year-olds with 17-year-olds, and if you're an adult, 18 plus, that's what it is with that, and that's what we got, of course, on the go with the circus special, of course, of what we are now, category to be, of course, impudent in all the situational aspects where we are now, of course, to be inside the sphere of the domain, inside the sphere of the domain where we are category, of course, to be now, of course, involved fully. Hey, that's interesting. See the number on the bus? It's 44 and then 11. But that's not the actual number of the bus. So basically, we sometimes were weird about certain details. The bus number is 492, but it had a number 22 on it. 22, 11, and then 44. So 22, 11, and 44, it had, of course, on the situational aspects. And now we got to give a little bit of that rock and roll for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the firefighters, all those involved in the production, distribution of food, and all those, of course, who are now on the firefighters, where you hear the ambulance. Got to make them some good loving with that, and got to get it on that loving rock and roll. So all the situational aspects where we are now is involved in the sphere of this difference. Of course, we are different, and this difference is categorically not a bad or a negative thing. It is that we are different, and this difference can sometimes be seen in the characteristics where we are now, you know. And these characteristics where we are now to be is sometimes where we are, the dynamics where we are on the go to get it done, and that's just something where we got, you know, to do on those XYZ sentimentality of the proposition, of course, of all the dynamics where we are now, that we can find solutions, right? We can work to have solutions and compromises, of course, to the dynamics where we are in all the protocols, and of course all the civilizational things where we are now in the accordance of all the propositions where we got, of course, now to just say it directly and just without reservations, and then we can work to establish that esprit de corps, and then that friends with benefits, and or pledge your allegiance to our family. That's how we're gonna rock and roll, because I don't want to waste nobody's time. Certainly don't waste mine. I won't waste yours. You know what for? And if you want to be friends with benefits, you're black, you're white, you know, and exchange massages, and I work out regularly every day, dancing, and I'm androgynous, I'm 50-50, you know. I'm a mystic, I believe in reincarnations, and I'm here in North America, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, on the island of the Hawk, Perderabo till the end, I guess, and Mountain Mount Royal is my second home, and now I decided to, instead of going that route, to go this other route, because I'm gonna head towards the sun. In the sun, I put that sunscreen, and I'm gonna perform what I do, this ritual-like routines of marching out, training, exercising, marching more than the generals of NATO already, and I saw the fire responders, ambulance drivers, firefighters, somebody make them some good loving, otherwise send them to me, you know, because if somebody making LOV today in the free world, make enough love for me too, you know. I'm not sexually frustrated. If I would be, I would probably discuss it, but I'm not. I have a healthy masturbation, you know, a pretty healthy masturbation. I do have a peculiar scar, maybe it's psoriasis or eczema, or, you know, a skin condition on my 50-50 androgynous clit, dick clit. It sometimes goes that rocket heaven like God has blessed it. That rocket, get those erections, but it's a clit dick, you know. I get that 50-50 androgynous pansexual, you know, big rainbow dragon booty, but general CUCK, drop down, give me some push-ups nonetheless on the way. And of course it is, I have to check. I don't have the $300 to go to the dermatologist. $300 to go to the dermatologist I don't have at the moment, but it's something which I apply some cream, because it itches, you know. And I went about 9 years ago. I went to check if it was. STDs, sexually transmitted disease, and no, I tested, and it's not. It doesn't come from STDs. I don't have STDs, so it's kind of like a big patch, you know. And when I get those erections, it just elongates. It kind of looks like a, I don't know. It kind of looks like a snake skin, you know, almost like a snake skin, like a snake kind of. But it's very visible. The bigger the clit, dick clit rocket, sometimes on occasion goes, the bigger the erection, in other words, of this androgynous Aspi artist, athlete, philosopher, geopolitical, theoretical, honest, and theorist, and the bigger the patch is visible. But I discussed it in the past. It's not something that I had. It just itches sometimes. I put a cream so it itches less, but I need a better cream because we have to. Well, again, I can't afford a dermatologist. Anyways, back to Asperger's and my scars aside, I got plenty on the body, and whatever the case may be, plenty of scars on the body and the face, and whatever the case, I'm happy, joyous, and financially stressed. I was a bit moody earlier, but now in the sun marching, I'm feeling better. And I'm thinking about being in solidarity with all of the workers, all the truckers, the bakers, the butchers, the construction workers, the firefighters, the electricians, the plumbers. Maybe they're also stressed, financially stressed, got a little bit of that problem with it, and got a little bit of that rock and roll, and that's just how we go with that, and it's just how we gotta be on it, that's it, that's all, we gotta get a little bit of that LOV, and that's just how we are now. See, that's made in Canada, Fabriqué in Canada, and sometimes you get that made in USA on the way. You see some of them are actually made in USA. So I'm gonna finalize, hey, that's a beauty. We're gonna finalize on Asperger's, and we're gonna get into geopolitics because that's where my rock and roll is. And Asperger's is not evil, negative, bad, or detrimental, or nefarious, or malicious. It's not a disease. N.O.T., not a disease. It is a neurological mental divergent condition. We have these brain mutation, and what causes Asperger's is not known. Really, the cause can be hereditary, and the cause can be not just hereditary, but the cause can actually be a combination of hereditary factors and environmental factors. So it could be either or both, environmental or hereditary. That's the mystery of Asperger's thereof, is that the causes are inconclusive, and there's no medication, right? Because if an Asperger requires a certain therapy, then the therapy is different for different individual aspects. Myself, I don't require much support, and I got saying that over the past years I got a great support from my anonymous friend. And if I make $1 million, gonna give half, $1 billion, gonna give half, $1 trillion, gonna give half, and I'm gonna propose again. I guess I'm gonna be the last deadline, 31st of October, Halloween. If not, my last deadline this year. If I don't propose again, I'm gonna probably propose again, because I proposed twice. I got a no. It's gonna do it like Joe Biden. I think he proposed 7 times. He got 6 no's, and then the 7th he got a yes, or so the myth, legend goes, urban legend, whatever the case may be. But I got a no, and it's gonna be a special type of marriage, because I am androgynous, pansexual, Adrian Hanna, dragon, reborn during COVID, died in February 2020. I had COVID, I survived, and please keep the COVID protocols, blah, 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 blah. We gotta get it, of course, on the go, and get, of course, the situational awareness of all the Asperger's is not a mental illness, it's not a disease. We constitute a tiny small minority, but please don't, if you're an Aspi, finance so that the unemployment level for Aspis goes, it's unacceptable. The 3 main problems we Aspis face, one of them is employment. And I had many jobs. It's just keeping them. Some jobs were a few months, a few weeks, 4 months, 3 months, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a few months, a few weeks, a few weeks, a few months, 4 months, 3 months, a few weeks, a few days, even a few weeks, a few months, a few days, 4 months, and whatever the case. So not necessarily getting them, but keeping them, because we're different, and the workplace is mostly structured for neurotypicals, for the 99%. And I don't have resentful, antagonistic ill will towards the majority, you, the 99%. I don't. And we just have to build those bridges, the small, medium, large, or extra large. We have to build those bridges, whatever those bridges are, we need to build them, and sometimes it requires different sizes, small, medium, large, or extra large, and that's, of course, where we are, of course, to build them. And we have to build, build. That's it. Build the bridges between us, Aspies, and you neurotypicals, the vast majority of the population. I don't have any resentful, antagonistic feelings, none whatsoever. I'm just joyous, happy now. You know, I was depressed and suicidal. Depression and suicidal is way higher for the Aspie community, hey? Way higher. It stands 9 times higher. So I was depressed and suicidal from about summer 2014 till about summer 2017. You know? Maybe before 2014 I drowned myself in alcohol. I was doing drugs. That's why I have trouble. Slow down when you hear the police. Safety, security, public-private partnership, slow down. Look left and right. If you hear the police, ambulance, sirens of the ambulance, sirens of the police, firefighter sirens, slow down. And, you know, life and criminal rehabilitation is important. As I sing that rock and roll for the boys and girls in blue, always for the 63. We got to merge the RCMP and the FBI ASAP. Of course, also the safety of other citizens is important nonetheless. And the safety, not just safety, but of course, I sing that rock and roll for my brothers and sisters across the 63, because we're going to get that Imperial Criminal Rehabilitation Act, because we need to build a 44. See, this is again dangerous if somebody comes with a foot or with a bike here, because we need to build a 44. 44 mass cities, tunnel underground, subterranean tunnel-like city structures, cities underground for in case of a thermonuclear war. We gotta start building them ASAP because we don't have the dome yet. And you saw China since 2020, they increased their nuclear capacity, and you saw the big military pronouncement just a few days ago, 4 days ago at the parade, military parade. I never seen anything like that, and I watched 4 parades from the 70s, 1978, 1980, I believe, 1984 and 89, during the Soviet Union, the USSR's massive annual military parades, which I watched, and this one was from China gave me goosebumps, and I don't know if anybody noticed, but I was quite alarmed, and not really alarmed, but in a way surprised, but in a way at the same time knowing demographics and knowing as a North American nonetheless, from studies and learning the People's Republic of China, not the People's Republic of China, mainland China. If you notice, there's thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of troops. Slow down when you see the police, when you hear the car sirens again, slow down. And you know, back to China, if you notice, you didn't see any black person, any black men or women serving in there was not one, not even one. I was trying to say, hey, not even one. In the Dragon Army in Canada, North America, as we're going to fuse Canada, United States for the 63, I wanted, of course, to be black, white, and brown, and, you know, all dragons, nobody's born a dragon, not even myself, but definitely, you know, I was just, in the Army of Canada, we have a parade of just 100. You would definitely have a more diverse. You definitely have my brothers and sisters for blacks, you know, of North American population, blacks. Brothers and sisters for blacks are 13.3, 13.4%, including my neighbors. Hey, my neighbors are black, and just as a matter of fact, that what's interesting to see that I didn't see any, not even one in the whole army. Joy Row Runner, see? So the black and white, we're gonna have some joy together here in an army of the free, the strong, the brave, the loving. We gotta have some loving in that, you know? Black, white, and rainbow, the free, the strong, the brave, the loving, unlustful. Lust can be channeled, you know? I lust. You know, I lust. Probably strange, weird sexuality. I have probably one of the strangest, I guess, but it's not illegal. It's not, you know, it's between adults, you know, 18 plus. Not in that way. It's just perhaps weird and awkward and bizarre and probably comedic, probably quite like a comedy. I think a lot of my sexual energies and sexuality is kind of like a comedy. I think most people will just laugh. It's like, are you for real? You like that? Like, yeah. It's like be like comedy, you know. They're probably laughing, but hey, that's, you know, no need to spy on me. Secret services of China, Xi Jinping, Putin, don't come. No need. I don't need. I don't need everything we got. NORAD, NATO plateau. We gotta implement the DMAA philosophy protocols from now until the future. And whoever else wants to join NATO, I believe that's about rock and roll with that. Because now they're forming their own constituencies and geopolitical regions. But of course, before October 7th, before Sweden joined, or 32, I was advocating, there was 31. I was advocating for both. If you check past videos, I was advocating for Mexico and Israel to become respectively the 32nd and 33rd before October 7th. And now, of course, Mexico is not joined, but of course, who joined was Sweden. NATO since 1949, and it's September 11th in 48 hours. September 11th was the only time that Article 5 was invoked. Collective Security Article 5 was invoked only once. Article 5 was invoked only once, you know. Article 5 was invoked only once. Article 5 was invoked only once in and since the history, of course, of NATO. So Article 5 was, of course, invoked only once in the history of NATO. That's only one time that it was invoked. Besides that, there was no invocation whatsoever. There was no invocation. That one time it was invoked, of course, it was, of course, during the September 11th attacks, when, of course, that situation would be on the XYZ, and that's what it is for the XYZ, and for all the butchers, the bakers, the lovers, the nurses, the doctors, the firefighters, all the plumbers, electricians, all those welders, and all those involved in the firefighting, the butchers, and all those XYZ, of course, who are on the go now. It's all those, of course, who are now concomitantly to do, and that is something what we have, of course, to do, and it's something what we got of that appellation, you know, all the way for the firefighters, the butchers, and the bakers, and the nurses, and the doctors, and all those involved now on the trucks, you know. Imagine all the plumbers. So that's why we gotta get that Dragon Army. That's what we gotta do with that, and that's something where we have to appellate, and conclusion may be, of course, in the conclusion where we are now, to say that we're gonna finalize on Asperger's and we're gonna go to what I gotta say, you know, now to gotta get it be, you know. So that's what it is with that. That's what it is with the goal. That is something where we have now, you know. That is something where we got to get doing with that, you know. Yeah, so it is all this conclusion where we are now. That's the sun, you know. Abracadabra. That's the sun. I love that sun, and get a little bit of tan. It's always good. Always good to go. Gonna turn here and go by the side and get it on the go now, you know. That is just something where we gotta get doing with that, and that is just something where we are. Look at that. At a gizmos. A little bit of that gizmo. It's not a gizmo, it's a flora fauna. It's nature, you know. That is just what nature is, and that is just how we nature go with that, and that is just, of course, the definition where we are now. You know, of course, all the positions. We look here, and what do we see? Public works, and we need to salute the public workers of the past, present, you know. Past, present, because so much work has been done with that. So much work has been done, and of course all this work and arbeit has been done to go now, and it's also something which we have to be appreciating about, you know, appreciating this massive work which was done and which is being done now, you know. That is just something which is being done now, and of course that is just the appreciation, of course, of the work now. For the future is being done now, and for the past it was done for now. For the future is being done now, today, this public work, and for the past it was done for today. So it was done for the past, from the past, that is done for now, and now is done for the future. I guess that's a little bit of that rock and roll song, and that's just what it is now. And here we go, we're gonna pass on the side there. Gonna pass on the side right there. See how it's made to go, and that's why we gotta get drilling with that, and that's just how we gotta get that rock and rolling. See, they're like a snake. So all the public workers now across the North American Collective, that's something which they have to be concomitant about, and think about it. All this, well, this is Aspi. This is an Asperger brain here. So the Asperger brain, of course, is something, the dynamics which we have. The Aspi brain, functions differently. Now I was meditating on all the aqueducts which are potentially linking Canada, United States with the water and the water system across all the big cities. And of course it took decades and decades and decades for them to be built, right? Took decades and decades and decades for them to be built. You know, decades and decades and decades of them to be built. That is what it is with that, and that is what we got. That is what we got, of course, with the rock and roll. So that is, of course, all the situational aspects where we are now. So that life affirming that this civilization is a privilege, with my difference, we have to build these bridges between you neurotypicals and us neurodivergent. See this beautiful bridge that I'm passing, which took brains and muscle, all the brains and muscle which it took. It requires further brains and muscle to build bridges continuously. That's what it is with that. And here we're gonna try to traverse on the side. So here, actually if I go underneath, it's better. So now because of the cars, I don't usually go like that route, but now I'm gonna do it. And I'm just gonna have to be prudent and go here to cross underneath until they come there. So I'm estimating that their speed, although I see them blurred, I was prescribed some glasses, I got about almost 45 seconds. So let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. So I needed only 33. But let's count to see if I was right. 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, exactly, 45. So see how my brain works? I was calculating my steps and their distance and how far and how fast they were gonna go. How fast they were gonna go. So I calculated the distance on the go, you know. I calculated on a distance on the go, you know. I calculated, so that was almost 45 seconds, like I said. And I saw them blurred on the other side, so I calculated the distance, the trajectory. This is perhaps an N.A.C.P, weird brain of an N.A.C.P. Like I said, my brain, because of Asperger's, is different. And so sometimes we have strength, like calculating the distance and the speed, because I calculated how much, of course, meters I have to go until I'm safe, because I don't want to stay on the bike lane, on the bike path. So I said, how many? I have about 40 a few yards. I calculated in meters and yards, and until their speed, for me to be safe, I have to move that fast. So I was right, almost, approximately, exactly, almost precise, almost with a perfect precision, but not exactly 100%, but close to a perfect precision of how many seconds I had to clear for their safety and my safety, right? This is like football, I guess, because, you know, Aspies, we have special interests, and my trinity is geopolitics, sports, fitness. Dancing is my favorite sport, but I love, after dancing, is North American football, boxing. I love hockey, tennis, and I love all sorts of sports. Everything to do with sports, fitness activities, I'm in. But dancing, to dancing, D-A-N-C-E, dancing is a sport. To dance is a sport, and other fitness activities as well. But of course, dancing is something which we have, of course, to go. And dancing is my favorite sport, right? So I love also North American football, 49ers. I'm a 9 for since as long as I can remember, and that is just something which I love to do. And I was calculating kind of in the football sense, the speed, how many yards I have to get until I get to safety, to safe zone, to not be on the bike path basically. And I was kind of close, precise. I guess I scored a touchdown, I guess, or 3 points out of Okay, so Aspies were different, and with the three main problems, and I'm gonna finish on Asperger's, going to geopolitics, super important. I'm gonna finish on Asperger's. So Asperger's we have these special interests, also known as obsessive interests, which preoccupy our daily habits, routines, and we can be super focused, super intense, super concentrated, super in it, super dedicated in those special interests. Sometimes, unfortunately, to the detriment of other things of life, such as socialization. And among Aspies, there's a way higher dropout rate. Paradoxically, a lot of Aspies are self-taught, but it's high school dropout rate for Aspies. People with autism or Asperger's is way higher than the neurotypical, and from higher education, such as college or university. Myself, I have a high school diploma. I graduated high school. I did graduate high school myself, so I have a high school diploma. And I didn't finish college. I took some classes. I think I got a English university certificate for assessment of the English language capabilities. And of course, that is just something which we have, of course, to do. And of course, all that situational complex where we are now is all the dynamics where we are, of course, interjected, of course, to go and to be, and of course, to be mindful of all the situational aspects where we are now, in all the domains where we are now, to get going, so that is something which we have to interject, and that is something which we got to get doing. So we gotta get it for my uncle there, uncles. Big smile, thank you for smiling. I smiled back, and okay, that's kind of cute. Black and white there, that's kind of cute, You got some talent, I guess. You're not supposed to, but I guess, when there's talent, we could, what do you say, when it's not an eyesore, there is some talent there, I guess. I would say leave that one, but these other ones are kind of, these, if you got talent, to just do it, I would be the mayor, chief of police. Do it if you got talent. If you can do something good, then this whole structure needs some embellishment, because you need, by looking at it, you can inspect that, of course, it is. The Dragon Army, the Dragon Army, the Dragon Army, the Dragon Army. Red, 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 my favorite color. That looks like a lion's face, eh? Surrounded by a lion's face. Kind of nice. Face of a lion here. Maybe got some moment going on. The Dragon Army, where you at? Pledge your allegiance, legions. Stand in formation. For the 63 always let it be. And you see how much work by the DRT, the debt refusion theory, we're gonna be able, of course, to build and rebuild the infrastructure. You see how much, a lot of work needs to be done. See, like this one, it looks like it's haven't been done some rehabilitation work for more than 44 years, if not more. So we're gonna finalize on Asperger's and get going, because I gotta discuss also the DRT. So we see the world differently, and we have these special interests, also known as obsessive interest. We can spend, myself included, I spend hours. Even today I was supposed to leave at 1. I delayed until 2, then from 2 to 3. So I left only about, it was 3:20 p.m. Because there were so many geopolitical events. From Nepal, the Nepal situation, the Israel-Qatar new development. There was the BRICS Emergency Summit. There's the United States Press Secretary discussing the events. There was here in Canada events, Mark Carney, Uncle Carney, another events, my brothers and sisters, the king is absent. And of course, I am an independent geopolitical theoretical analyst and theorist. And that's what I do, of course, sports, fitness, geopolitics. I rock and roll, of course, in all the 24/7 where we got. Watch it, that's for the children there. Children can come, and there's shards there. So what I'm gonna do is, let's see, how can I take care of this? Because sometimes there's children coming with families here playing. So okay, I think I got some solutions. Okay, so wait a minute. I'm gonna put it in here. Okay, so, and dogs, so we got a little bit of public safety concern, at least visibly, So that is, I guess, a little bit of to do a little bit of that work with that, and just put it in the garbage, So I'm just gonna put it in, and just gonna make sure that it goes where it's going, in the garbage. So Asperger's is not a mental illness, and we have these special characteristics and traits, and one of them is just we have these ritual routines where we are engaged with super focus, super intensity in those special interests, and those special interests preoccupy our all daily routines with intensity, super focus, high concentration, and super dedication. And of course, when it comes to geopolitics, sometimes I just don't realize that I spend so much time just involved in geopolitics, that I spend so much time just doing geopolitical analysis, theorizing, and of course involving myself with geopolitics. So many things, of course, in the geopolitical sphere. And with rock and roll and with fitness, of course, sports and fitness. And I started my fitness journey after I crossed Canada coast to coast. So having crossed Canada coast to coast, that's what got me out of being depressed and suicidal. The three main problems which we Aspies encounter are: one, lack of friends. I got that solution. Friends with benefits only, or pledge your allegiance. That's the solution for me. Pledge your allegiance, or friends with benefits only. Pledge your allegiance, or of course, friends with benefits only. Pledge your allegiance. And besides that, the other problem is the high unemployment rate, which is still unacceptable. It's 4 out of 5 Aspies. Don't again mention people who are unofficially diagnosed, yet they would be diagnosed, like myself, with Asperger's, like more millionaire actors and billionaires, financiers, and people like my brother Scorpio bro, LOV to Bill Gates or others. And the other problem we encounter is high depression and suicidal rates. And I've been depressed, I've been suicidal, I've been there. So I just have to work on characteristics such as staring and these traits where we get too close to people, the personal space. I always have to take a step or two back, or even 3, because we tend to get too close, like close to the face, even like by 4 inches. 4 inches. Well, of course, you're supposed to keep a few yards, right? A few meters, a few yards for the personal space. And Aspies, those things they just don't enter the same. We just don't have these unwritten social dynamics, and social norms don't come that easy for us, and we always have to work on that. And that's can be a big problem, I guess, in losing employment, losing friends, and repeating words, and echolalia, or saying the same phrase or verbatim per verbatim. That's Latin for word, as somebody else would say. So repeating the words, sometimes the repetition of words would be, of course, repeating the words, right? Repeating the words, and that's just sometimes what we gotta be doing like that, and repeating those words, whatever the case may be, repeating those words with the rock and roll, and that's just something what we gotta get doing with that. Repeating words, phrases, sentences, the whole sentence or phrase or the whole words, right? The whole phrase, the whole sentence, the whole phrase, the whole sentence, the whole phrase, and that's what it is with that, and that's what we gotta get doing with that, That's just something what we got, and in the sun, and that's it for me. Friends with benefits only. Want to get that LOV, or black, white, black, rainbow, white or black or rainbow, you're a man or woman, We're gonna get that grid iron rock and roll with that, and that's just something which we do, on the field and with consent and 18 plus, and that's about how we gotta roll it, and how I roll it, and 24/7 sports, fitness, rock and roll, geopolitics with me. Paid my rent, paid my electricity bill, and we got like many Aspies. I've been depressed, I've been suicidal, and not since 2017 that event completely changed my life. Crossing Canada coast to coast, I had a revelation, in 2017 when I went to Vancouver, BC. On that Vancouver, BC, when I went, that was in August, and then in September 2017 I went in Nova Scotia, Halifax, and that event really changed my whole life. Before that, I was depressed, and I was suicidal, I was depressed, and that event transformed my life. I started having a strong esprit de corps with my fellow Canadians. I established a strong esprit de corps with my fellow North Americans. My brothers and sisters in the 50 states, always for the 63. My way is to fuse Canada, United States into the Imperial Perpetual Republic best, and those are the dynamics which we are now, and which we are on the go, and I understand that is sometimes what you have to do, you know. That's just that rock and roll, and you know, and healing, and I guess I gonna live till the end with my scars, and maybe not with the retrograde amnesia. Sometimes, paradoxically, by a trauma or with a trauma or hypnosis or therapy, memory comes back. But what? I mean, it doesn't really matter for me. Cross. Because 2014, spring 2014 is a long time ago. Right? Spring 2014. Spring 2014, February 2014 is 11 years and more than 11 years and a half ago. 11 years and 6 months ago. So I guess what's the point, you know, I guess for whatever, sometimes it comes back with time, but those are the three problems Aspies face. Unemployment is very high, unacceptable at 80%, 4 out of 5. 4 out of 5 Aspies, people with Asperger's, are unemployed. That's 8 on 10. Do the math, and that's 80%, even more in some cases. More than 80%. You realize that we cannot accept that. We got to work on that. And my friends with benefits only solutions, and you know, that's just what it is with that. And that's how we got to get doing with the drill. And friends with benefits, open for business, pledge your allegiance, support the dream. The dancing goddess in the dragon kingdom is fundamentally a dream for a public-private partnership. And that public-private partnership, of course, is something what we got to get doing on that, and that is just something what we have, of course, to get that drill, you know, and the appellation, of course, of the conjugation of the problems and the situational awareness where we are now, to get on that drill and to get on that goal for those who are now on the field, the butchers and the bakers, the doctors, the plumbers, and the electricians, and all those firefighters, and you know, on the workers, and it's something which we have, of course, to think about and to do and to rehabilitate. Lots of work. My brothers and sisters who lost their liberty also, you know, lost their liberty to do their criminal rehabilitation, you know. You take your second chance, third, second, fourth chance, you balance them out, and you get it on go, and you know, it's always sing that rock and roll for not just the boys and girls in blue, but always that rock and roll for those who do their criminal rehabilitation. And now we got so many truckers on the road, construction workers, plumbers, electricians, bakers, those daycare workers changing diapers. And I just want to say hello to some of those birdies, those birds. So I'm gonna cross to check out those birds. I'm gonna check out those birds, how they go with that. And yeah, look at those. They're just aligned like the legions, legions. So high depression rates, high suicidal depression rates, high unemployment rate, and we lose friends. We don't have a lot of friends, or very few. That's why it's friends with benefits from now on. So now you're gonna need to leave the baggage at the door. I'm gonna enter my domain, my kingdom, geopolitics, the study. I am an independent geopolitical theoretical analyst, philosopher, thinker, and strategist. I develop strategies mostly for Canada, United States, binationally, for NORAD, binationally first and foremost, but also extended for NORAD and NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, of which now Sweden has joined. So we got 32 nations. Maybe some others will join. We got 32 nations, and of course for the world peace, but now I'm gonna leave a little bit of world peace for now, maybe later, and we're gonna go back in time to 2019. Don't worry, I didn't need to hunt you, to eat you. Back in time to October 2019, I got proof from what I'm gonna say now. I predicted what's happening now back in October 2019. In October 2019, I predicted that there's going to be an international conflagration. And so I made and created a workout training program system to go with such a scenario, a World War III scenario. So I, again, leave the baggage at the door. I predicted what's happening now back in 2019, and I'm just gonna drop this there and disinfect a bit, because you know this, I carried it and so I didn't get caught. But maybe that's why I was saved by the forgotten goddess, as I will to build the forgotten goddess temple, maybe to save others. Because those 4 bees, interesting, I saw 4 bees, more than 4 bees, look. Oh, I thought there were only 4 of you. You're a legion, not just 4. And this, I'm gonna put it in there. See, that's it. And now I'm gonna disinfect my hand with that disinfectant. Maybe I saved a child there, you know, because in the past, since I remember my life, February 2014, you know, I guess credit my surviving to the goddess, and I guess I saved some lives along the way. And people are driving, and other people, I guess I gotta get it on that go, and gotta get it on the go and do it. And that's just something what we have, of course, to do. And that's what it is, like that, and that's what I gotta do it, man. I'm just gonna disinfect the hands before I get it on the go, and that's all. That's what it is, and that's what you gotta get doing with that, you know. Exercise there, and turn your head left or right, and that's it, that's it, you know, and that's it. We gotta get this off, and rock and roll, and oh, I put a little bit too much. I don't want to waste it. Might as well use it all. 10, 20 seconds. 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and enjoy try fear. I put a little bit too much. I guess I not just guess, but I know I wasted a bit. I actually put double than I should have, but the quantity, I guess, was a bit too much. It doesn't require that much. Whatever. Use it, I guess. It's there to use, and that's what's important. This antiseptic hand sanitizer, which I have, you know, so I'm not getting promoted nor any public-private sponsorship at the moment. I'm financially stressed. I just sure, because it's what I used. It's an antiseptic hand sanitizer. It kills that bacteria, that germs, which are potentially on the glass that I picked up. And when I used, of course, to push my hand against the public garbage can, and you know, thank you, public workers who keep our cities clean, eh? Civilization is a privilege, eh? So back in 2019. October, November 2019, we gotta get on that go. So October, November 2019, I predicted a international conflagration. So the international conflagration that I predicted is happening in a parallel manner, not all details, so it's not exactly as I predicted it, but in a general manner is of course something which I predicted in a general overall manner. So of course it is following a pattern of which I have predicted. Well, it was an in-depth scholarly academic analysis, but of course just to summarize it, if I could summarize or make one of the important points of it, was of course that is something which we have of course to do, and of course that is the situation that I of course predicted it, that do of course to the case in point in time being that we're gonna get drilling on the situation or the motive, the reason of my prediction, my conclusion that humanity, that we are headed towards an international conflict again, in other words, a World War III, was due mainly to the fact that there were many unresolved conflicts from the 20th century, specifically from the Cold War period. Right? Specifically, but not only from the Cold War period. And if you look at many of the things that are happening now, if you look, those are unresolved conflicts from the 20th century. Israel Hamas, for example. Hamas is an organization which was, of course, done and started in the 1980s. You know, in the 1980s. In the 1980s. In the 1980s. In the 1980s, Hamas was the institution which was set up, which was grouped or founded in the 1980s. Hamas. They only took power in 2007. 20 years after they were founded, 20 years after they were founded. And of course, the other one in consequence, conflict, is Russia-Ukraine. Again, I'm not on the ground with 300 troops, 300 men and women to wholly assess the situation in a whole situation and whole, with more detail on the ground. I'm not on the ground with 300 men and women to assess more in depth and do a census and do a surveillance and do a recon and all that, right? So I'm a North American, in other words. I'm a Quebecer Canadian North American for the 63. So I predicted that these conflicts were gonna restart. And Russia-Ukraine is a conflict which dates from the Cold War period. And the Cold War period lasted for almost 45, I say, between March 1947 and December 1991. Almost 45 years. Not, some say 46. I'm willing to go more than 45. I don't mind the ones who say 46, 1946 to 1991 or to 1992 or 1945 to, I don't mind. I don't really object, but I say almost 45 years. So that's how I say it. Almost 45 years. I don't object necessarily, but that's what I say. And I just want to take a beauty here, and I just want to see a little bit of there. Somebody's doing a little bit of that. Just want to see somebody. Oh, they're fishing there, see? Somebody's fishing, you know. Let's see if they can fish. Oh, wow, I think they catch something. I don't know if you can see. Yeah, I think they did. I did a cat. Yeah. That's why I see them blurred, but I think they're catching, see? Wow, they're fishing here. You can come fishing at Belle Province if you want. I think they're getting some fishes, eh? Maybe. He's pulling or not? Yeah. I just catched. I came just in time. He's catching a fish. Yes or no? Maybe. Pull. I have some in my mouth. This is beautiful. I really love this colorfulness here. I'm just gonna see. Is it pulling or not? Yeah. Oh, a big one. I'm gonna go see. Oh, wow. Quebec. Bienvenue in Quebec, la belle province, man. We're surrounded by a big river. I just caught it now. I just want to go see. I knew it. Just in time I came. It took 44 seconds, almost 45, to come out. That's a nice one, man. It's a big one. I'm not gonna go, but gonna let them be, you know. That's a big one. So you can fish here. It's a big one there, you know. Oh yeah, look at that. Oh yeah, it's got a big one, man. See? Look at that fish, man. Look at that. Look at that fish, man. That's a big from the river. That's a big one. That's a big one, man. Could feed a family. Wow. Vancha, no longer we built. Imagine we survived on building the fishes, all the fisheries which was done, and that's why they got the fish, man. Huge fish. Yeah, just now I came here and the fish just got out of this one is the diversion from the river, so you can come fish here. I think if you're a tourist, you gotta get some permit, but you can come fish, and I think they're even edible. They're closed because we got some pollution, but I think they're still edible. People still eat them. So hey, that's fun. Just now, that fellow cousin just got a fish, man, and we got that French here in La Belle Province, and super fun, huge one, eh? He looked like my arm, like a yard. That was a big long one. I didn't want to go down because I didn't want to slip because I was filming, and I want to go closer because he was steep, and with these work boots I just didn't want to. They were not stairs. I wasn't afraid. I say caution and prudence best. And nice, just directly, just now a big fish, and this is a big river, you know, and we're surrounded by a big river with that, and that's just the big river where we're surrounded by. Just gotta get out of the way here. The bikers going on their bikes. Got a little bit of kissing from the uncle and the auntie there, and that's where we are, man. Just gonna go take a look at the garden, and that's something where we are now, you know. So yeah, what a nice day. I just love it. Somebody caught a fish. They're kissing there, the auntie and uncle and all my great family here in the North American Collective. They're doing their business roundabout, and my cousin there walking the dog, and I'm gonna go enjoy a little bit of that good terrace there. It's not a terrace really, but it's not really a terrace. It got some gardens which I love, and I love the yellow flowers, and the combination with the red is something which I have to be doing with that. And just gotta take it easy on the roads, man, you know, because you gotta get on that road, and gotta be careful with that, and always on the road with your grid, you know. And they're cars, you know. Cars, we can replace them. Cars parts can be replaced, and you know, all the dynamics of the car parts. Just slow down, you know. A lot of people are stressed, some more than others. My only stress now is financial, but now I feel good, you know. Now I feel good on the go, and I'm happy I saw some kisses. Somebody got fished a big fish, a big one, and that's always fun. And back to geopolitics now. So it's not turning there. I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait a bit. Maybe I should put a button. So all the civilizational aspects where we are now is all the. What a sunny day. Oh, now I can pass. I got 7 seconds. I just want to finish admiring this beautiful garden here. Thank you for the public workers. It's so nice. Oh, look, isn't it gorgeous? That's why Imperial Republic, we're going to have to finance mass embellishment projects such as this. Look at that. This is very nice. I really love it. And the combination of colors, especially the vivid ones, you know, they feel good to the touch. So I always love to see gardens on my way. Beautiful gardens on my way. Because it's like a big garden. Montreal, Island of the Hawk. N.A.C.W.P. So back to 2019. I predicted what's happening now. Back in 2019, October 17th to be precise, and I have proof. So because I have the video online when I discussed the World War III, and consequently, with my prediction of a World War III, incoming World War III, I had, of course, made and created a workout training program system, made design, of course, to go with such a scenario, such as a World War III, back, of course, in 2019, October 17th, to be specific, to be exact. So that was the scenario. And the workout which I created is officially titled the General War Integrated Total Body Training System, the Draconis workout, aka the 300 workout, aka the Draconis workout, aka the 300 workout. Officially, the title is General War Integrated Total Body Training System. The General War Integrated Total Body Training System. because the title has the technical description of what it actually is. So it's a workout training program system which requires no equipment, which is made to go exactly hand in hand with a World War III scenario. It is made, of course, to go with a scenario where we would be needing the mobilization of the citizens, of the citizens, of the citizens. Wow, look at that cat. Just out of nowhere, buds. What's happening? And of course, I love pets, I love animals. Just can't pet them too much if they're not poodles, you know, because I get sneezed up, I get starts having these allergic reaction. So sneezing, not severe. I don't get really itchy or anything like red dots or white dots. I just sneeze, you know. You can see in one of my videos, there's this furry dog, big furry dog, where of course came and this furry dog came and got close, and I sneezed like 4 times. Big achoo, 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 very powerful sneezes. So that's my type of reaction to the dogs that have the thick fur, you know, the thickness, the length and the thickness of the fur just makes me have these reactions to them. That's why I always move my face towards the sky when they get close, and I guess I don't pet them, because if I do, then I'll get back close to my face and I'll sneeze up. So back in 2019, I predicted what's happening now. Gonna turn my head left and right, because what do we gotta do when the public gotta turn your head left and right? Because the brakes sometimes fail, malfunction, and the citizen driver can potentially press the accelerator instead of the brake. So we have, of course, to do our due diligence in order, of course, to ensure our safety and security and prudence. And of course, I am going to turn my head left and right once again, because I want to be close to the river of the Hawk Island is the Snake River, you know, Snake River with that, and that's just what we have, of course, to do. The Snake River is something which we gotta be doing like that. That's something what we got, you know. Look at this. This on the other side, I think on the other side, I think that's. So it's part of it, of course, is Kahnawake, and part of it is Chateauguay, right? Chateauguay and Kahnawake. So part of it is Chateauguay and part of it is Kahnawake. And you can see how big the river is. And of course, the largeness of the river goes all the way to the Great Lakes. It goes all the way to the Great Lakes. So now the camera's pointing kind of course, on the side of the west, towards Western Canada. The sun is towards Western Canada, southwest, right? So now it's going, of course, to that dynamic. So that's where it's headed. So, baby, back to geopolitics. In 2019, I had predicted that there's going to be an international conflagration, aka World War III, and so made and created and produced a workout training program system to go hand in hand with such a scenario as a World War III scenario, as a World War III, basically. So that workout which I created, which of course is titled the General Integrated Total Body Training System. The General Integrated Total Body Training System is, of course, that workout which I created, of course, to go consequently with such an event as a workout training program system, which requires no equipment. Just gonna turn my head left and right and cross the street. So that event, that point in time, is of course the situational aspects of all the relationships until that point in time, and all the geopolitical developments. So basically the geopolitical developments which had, of course, arisen, which had transpired, which had occurred up to that point in time, in the 20th, but okay, I'm gonna have to specify 20th century, Cold War related. So Cold War, I'm not discussing 19th century, you know, Dutch East India Company and that, you know, I'm not gonna discuss that. I'm not going to discuss the Dutch East India Company and colonization. No. So this is specifically from the First World War, Second World War. First World War. This we can kind of go down here. Sometimes I go, see, that used to be a place where you could actually look. That was a lookout, see? That was a lookout there. It still kind of is, but it's just to go down, it's kind of steep. And it's been, I think, 9 years since I haven't passed by that lookout. It still is, but it's gonna be, to get up, going back is gonna be a bit more difficult, you know. But nonetheless, we can go down here just to show you how many places we have surrounding the island of Montreal. It's an island, and then we're gonna go back to geopolitics. So that is here. It's kind of a lookout, you know. You can come here and you can come see how big it is, and see you can even come there. Maybe one time we'll just come and just work out with the rocks there and train, and not today, I guess, but one time we can just go with the rocks and just train. And you know, I guess we have some camp here. Just make sure it's hygienic, you know. It's important, a little bit of that hygiene, and we got a little bit of that. See this, yeah, this was like a more accessible, but now it's kind of closed. It's access. It's access kind of closed, and you can see now that I'm pointing towards the west, and that's towards the Great Lakes. That's Western Canada. Western Canada, it's Ottawa, Toronto, and all the way to the other coast. That's going towards the Great Lakes, and the river is going, we're going east, so it's going towards the Atlantic. The Atlantic, because the west is the Pacific, but it doesn't reach the Pacific, it reaches Lake Michigan and the Great Lakes, right? Well, we can go by boat all the way, so we can go by boat all the way. So there's us. Here we are, you know. So yeah, that's just. Oh, I think there was a fish. Fish. Okay, so I just wanted to show, and here you can come and chill, and you can go down here, and just you can dip your feet, I guess. It's gonna get colder and colder, of course, but you can still get a little bit of that dip and feet. And I see a circle there, kind of looks rusted. Maybe somebody put that 44 years ago, 1980. Maybe, I don't know, but you can see the bridges, and we got to build those bridges between us, and you, me and you, pledge allegiance to our family. And now we're going to focus on geopolitics. So my analysis is, I specialize in 20th century and of course in the 21st century. I'm just going to go up and down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Woo! Propulsion. Ah, that was a rocket propulsion, man. We had, of course, to rocket in that up, and that was, of course, the rocket, and that's how we got it, and that's how we got it consequently like that, and that's just something where we have to be, and without putting ourselves here. Look at those yellows there, it's so nice. Nice yellow flowers. Feel like crossing, but I'm just gonna content myself to just gaze at them. From here on the camera, they're not that visible, but just so nice to me. Cause you know I love those yellow flowers. Let me be. Yeah, so I specialize in the 20th century. 20th century. I specialize in the Cold War. The Cold War. Which again lasted, some say lasted 46 years, 45. I say almost 45. So I placed the Cold War between March 1947 and 1991. End of December 26th, when the perestroika got initiated, was end of December. And I'm just gonna do a little pit stop. I realized that I haven't hydrated in almost 2 hours, and it's important for the road until we get to the hydration point for me to HYDRAT, because it's HOT. So we're gonna drink this 500 milliliters, gonna drink it all. Draconis HYDRAT, because we gotta march for the firefighters, butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, grocery store clerks, the plumbers, the artists, the construction workers, all those involved in the production distribution of food, the truckers on the road now, the plumbers, the electricians, the bakers, the IT workers, build some bots for the Dragon Army and the DGA, the Empire. For the Democratic Republican Empire, ready be in the sun 24/7, 3G, 5G, 4G. We gotta get rid of that. Typhoon, the typhoon, of course, which is mass espionage conducted by China. 500 milliliters. There we go, 500 milliliters. 500 milliliters. That's a good enough hydration, I guess perfect for what we need in order to converse, discuss the conversation where we are now, you know. The conversations which of course we have to conduct and we have to, of course, to do, and that is just something which of course we now have to put this backpack back on and get it on the drill and getting on the hydration done business. Please Wall Street, if you make $1 million today, I guess the stock market closed. Ding 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 at 4:30 p.m. and buying, selling, trading future option put stocks. And if you made $1 million, give of course some 10%. 10% of $1 million is 100,000. Support fellow Aspies if you're an Aspie millionaire, billionaire, and gotta flex a bit for my fitness journey. Fitness journey got a little bit of that rock and roll, and we continue the road and discussing geopolitics, see how big it is, and that's again towards the Great Lakes. Some boats now, boats coming in, boats going out to the North American Collectif. How many? X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D. There's a certain amount of them. That's what it is, a certain amount of them where we go, and that is of course the going of the amount, of course, where it is now, and all that amount which is going, of course, on the go now, to get it on the go, and that is the dynamics where we are, of course, now in the appellation, of course, of being incongruously, meaningfully discussing with a purpose to find solutions, especially as it comes to the SSD, Security Service and Defense Legion. The SSD Legion, as it is pertinent, of course, to the Security Service and Security Service and Defense of all the international plateau where we are now, with the communication levels, of course, where we have attained, and where we are, of course, to be in the coming years, even days, even months, and of course in this 21st century. So of course I predicted what's happening now back in 2019, October 2019, and October 2019, 17th of October 2019 to be specific. I predicted that on the horizon there's a coming, of course, conflagration and actual World War III coming on the scenario on the horizon, and I made that workout training program system made designed to go with that event, such an event as we have seen unfolding, of course, ever since, especially since the invasion of Russia, invading of Ukraine by Russia, whatever it's called, a military special operation against them. Again, I am not on the ground with 300 men and women, of course, to fully analyze and fully do a great analysis, a more in-depth analysis on the terrain, to do a forthcoming analysis, a surveillance of a mass scale population-wise at a macro level, right? With 300 men and women, it would be feasible for just in a week to cover lots of square kilometers, and go in those groups and go east, west, north, south, and assess as much as we can assess. But again, that is what it is in all the situational aspects where we are now, of course, to be on the go and to be, of course, where we are, the definition, to be now in the plurality where we are. Now, of course, to be concomitant where we go. Now, of course, to be able to do all the situational awareness where we are. Now, you know, so it's something where we have, of course, to be in all our domains, and something where we have, of course, to situate ourselves where we are prudently and involve ourselves with the matters at hand that affect us most, is, of course, the ongoing trade war with the United States. And what I did not predict is the deterioration of relations with the United States. So that I have to also discuss, because although I predicted an international conflagration, I did not predict that there's going to be a deterioration of relations with the United States. A deterioration of relations with the United States. That I did not predict. I did not predict that there's going to be a deterioration of the relations with the United States. So although I predicted an international global conflagration, what I did not predict was, of course, that there's going to be the re-election of Donald Trump, Donald Trump's re-election, concomitantly Donald Trump's re-election, and parallel the deterioration of relations with the United States. That I did not predict. So what I did predict was, of course, a World War III scenario, but I did not predict, of course, that it was going to be this international conflagration, which I did predict, but I did not predict that there's going to be, of course, this dictum, where, of course, this situation or apparel is now unprecedented, you know? Is now unprecedented. Is now unprecedented. So this unprecedented situation, that is just what it is. This unprecedented situation, which we now, of course, have to affix. So that is just the affirmation, of course, what it is with that, you know. That's just what it is. So, of course, that is just, of course, where we are. That's what we are.
Adaptable dog.
That is just what we are. You know, so this is where we are now. So this is where we are now. So that is just the specification, of course, where we are, of course, in the appellations and in the whole light of the revelations that vis-a-vis my workout training program system created to go hand in hand with a World War III scenario goes, of course, the situation where we are now faced for a potential need of a mobilization, just like I predicted it back then. Just like I predicted it back then. For the need of a mobilization, just like I predicted it back then. So for that need of a mobilization, just like I predicted it back then, was, of course, consequentially on the go, you know. And that's just what it is with that. So basically what I, of course, say is to just state clearly, and you have to also keep that in mind, because that is, of course, the keeping of the mind, of course, what we have, of course, now to be in the situational zone. That, of course, I have not predicted, of course, that I've not predicted, of course, what we have, of course, in the consequential matters. That I did not predict. And this is because it's super important, nonetheless. It's very important. I did not predict the deterioration of relations with the United States, which paradoxically, what is the principle of formulated, as I mentioned it a priori in all my videos, that we as Canadians, North Americans, our main interest is, of course, to work towards to establish the best cordial economic, social, financial relations with each other. Right? That is just the main motive, you know? That is just the main motive. Not a motive, necessarily a motive, but the geography, their geographical realities, the historical realities make it so. But this is paradoxically reciprocal. So what I'm making a reference to is something which I discuss often in my videos, a geopolitical reality that has to do with foreign affairs of Canada vis-a-vis the United States, or the United States vis-a-vis Canada. Canada vis-a-vis the United States, or the United States vis-a-vis Canada. The United States vis-a-vis Canada, or vis-a-vis United States vis-a-vis Canada, or Canada vis-a-vis the United States. So this unprecedentedness that we are now, of course, since August 1st designated, of course, as an unusual and extraordinary threat, We are designated since August 1st as an unusual and extraordinary threat. Canada. Due, of course, it's mentioned in the official White House dictums. And this is, see, I get goosebumps whenever I discuss it. I get goosebumps and shivers. You know that since August 1st, and this is serious, my fellow Canadians, is, of course, I had been sounding the alarm since 2019 that an international war is coming, a geopolitical crisis of major proportions, a storm of the century, if you will. I don't know if anybody saw that movie. But, of course, that prediction has come true in many ways. So of course, keeping that focal point in mind, of course, that we as Canadians, Quebecers, we have, of course, to establish the best cordial economic relations with the United States. But paradoxically, the United States, my brothers and sisters in the 50 states, the United States also vis-a-vis us has to establish the best, most cordial relations with us. Right? With us. Right? That is just how it is. You know? And that is, of course, just the situational aspects, of course, to be. And that is, of course, the situational aspects, and they have to clearly understand, you know, and j'espère que ça. So, that is what we have to fix now. The most important aspect, Uncle Connie, get him out of there. The most important aspect which we have, of course, to fix is the relation with the United States. And yes, it's a dragon versus Trump. See, paradoxically, Providence, the number 63 was on that car. Because yes, it's for the 63 which you're going to fuse, let our empire rise and be. Right? Because that is just our first. When it comes to foreign affairs, our number one priority has to be for us to establish the best economic, social, financial, representative, military, defense relations with the United States. And paradoxically, reciprocally, the United States vis-a-vis Canada, it is to establish the best, most cordial relations with us. So this is just like the pie symbol, not the pie, of course, for the bacon pie, the cheese pie, but any sort of pie, apple pie, blueberry pie, chocolate pie, bacon pie, shrimp pie, no pie whatsoever. No pie like that. A pi, mathematical constant, the symbol pi is an N. N with two heads, two faces. That's why our coming Imperial Republican Union will have that two faces, two heads. One for benevolent goodness and kindness, loving kindness. One for strength, justice, and punishment. The N is a symbol. It has two heads, two faces. Just like our empire will be in the future, two-headed, two-faced. And of course, one for the righteous and one for the wicked. And of course, the acclamation is that this has to be our number one priority, but also not just for Canada vis-a-vis the United States, but for the United States vis-a-vis Canada. Although the United States has a border with Mexico, right? But since it's coast to coast, ocean to ocean, our history, our historical context, and our future common destiny here is a new world, because we constitute a new collective civilizational complex of which Canada, United States, even Mexico is included in the North American Civilizational Collective. And look at the rest. Look at the rest. By the DRT, by my DRT theory, we're going to be able to rebuild the bridges. You see how we need? We got work to do. Look how much arbeit. It's rusty. It's rusty, man. And we got to build bridges, and we got mass infrastructure renewal act to build. Forget about anything outside XYZ. We got to focus for now. Of course, NATO is our allies, but I'm speaking about the 63 first and foremost, right? So the 63 first and foremost. And of course, that is the consequence where we are, of course, now, to be in the dynamic, So this dynamism, this, of course, dynamic civilizational complex is, of course, a new civilizational complex, which, of course, is not fully divorced but is distinct from Western civilization. Right? Is distinct. I'm just gonna turn a little bit here. Wow, look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Green and red. Now they're turning red. Just gonna go back here. So that I did not predict, right? I did not predict that there's gonna be a deterioration of relations with the US. That is, of course, something new for me as well. That is new for me. And it's new for us, because it never happened in the 21st century. It never happened in the 21st century. It didn't happen in the 20th century, you know? In the 20th century, it didn't happen. In the 21st century, it didn't happen. It didn't happen in the 21st century, neither in the 20th century. Right? Neither in the 20th century. It didn't happen. It's happening now. It's happening now. It's happening now. It has been happening since the Trump's re-election, which I did not predict. So now that we dwell, you have to just focus on what I'm about to say again. Forget everything else. Our main geopolitically and as a foreign influence, as a foreign affairs, our main interest is to have the best relations with each other. Right? There's just no way around that. You cannot negotiate with that. You cannot argue with that. That is always a constant. That is always a constant and has been a constant in the 20th century, and it will be in the 21st century. It is now. It is now, and it will be so. You cannot negotiate with that fact. You cannot negotiate with that fact. That is a non-negotiable fact. That has been, is, and will be that. I'm just gonna stretch a little bit here. I'm gonna stretch my legs right there. I was looking for somewhere right here. See, that's perfect. You put the leg right there. Ah, that's exactly what I needed. A little bit of that stretch. Oh yeah. Sometimes when you march so long, you gotta stretch. Get your legs. Look left and right, right and left. Assess 360 rotation. 360. Look at that beautiful bridge right there. See? Just gonna stretch a bit. So important to stretch midway, third way, halfway, to a quarter to stretch a bit of those legs, you know. I stretched a bit before I left, but I didn't even stretch enough. Should have stretched a little bit more. So you see how many of our bridges, Canada, United States, like that one looks rusty. That's why via my DRT TV, the Detrofusion TV, the DRT Detrofusion TV, we're gonna be able to, of course, rebuild it. You know, to rebuild it. So of course, now that I stretched a bit, stretched the other leg a bit, I'm gonna get back to what I was saying, because it's super important as a dynamic, as a comprehensive. One has to, everybody on the left, on the right, in Canada, United States, in the center, or in the center left, center right. I'm not gonna address the far left or the far right here, but you have to say, and you have to state with a yes. In the affirmative, you have, of course, to state this file, affirm with a positive that it is so. You cannot say no, you cannot say no, you cannot say maybe. You have to say yes. Our main interest as Quebecers, Canadians, as my brothers and sisters in 50 states, vis-a-vis us, the United States, and us vis-a-vis the United States, in our number one priority when it comes to foreign affairs, not domestic affairs, foreign affairs. The number one priority has to be that we have to work to establish and work towards the best, friendliest, familial, economic, social, commercial, social, cultural, sports, fitness, defense, security-wise, political relations to be established between Canada and the United States. Although the United States has a border with Mexico. You have to say yes. You cannot say no, and you cannot say maybe. Just like the pi symbol representing the proportion or the relation between the diameter and the circumference of a circle is always the same number, 3.1416. Right? It's always the same number. It does not change. 3.1416. It doesn't change. It's always the same number. That's a constant. It's not a variable. So that in geopolitics, for us Canadians, Quebecers, Canadians, North Americans, for my brothers and sisters, nice pyramid there. It is, that constant is so, to have the best, most cordial relations with each other. To have the best, most cordial relations with each other. That is just what it is. It cannot be altered. It's 3.1416, and that's just what it is with that, and that's just how it is for the go with that. Rock and roll. So that is yes, that's non-negotiable. That cannot be negotiated. That cannot be negotiated with. That cannot be negotiated with. So that cannot be negotiated with. And that is just something which it is, That cannot be negotiated with. That cannot be negotiated with, You cannot say no to that. You cannot negotiate with that, Comprenez? C'est ça, c'est rien pour ça. Ça, so that is just, of course, where we are, Now we are in a grave position, and we, Uncle Connie, forget the king. Paradoxically, the king is absent. I declare that, and I declare it today. The king is absent. And of course, we should have got rid of the king back when the millennium changed, The millennium changed. In 31st of December, 1st of January, Canada should have been a republic. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. That gotta go. The king is absent. It's time for the republic. It's time for the Imperial Democratic Republic of the 63. For the Imperial Democratic Republic of the 63. That gotta be for the Imperial Republic of the 63. That gotta be. So that's just how we have to, of course, situate ourselves, That's just the situation and the position where we, of course, have to work on now to be. So that is a must. All our politicians on the left and right and center, as the number one foreign priority, now has to be to work to reestablish and even better the relations with the United States. No, I would have voted for Kamala. I would have voted for Biden. I have been and will challenge Donald Trump to a boxing match ever since 2018, when Donald Trump imposed tariffs on Canadian aluminum and steel. It's been a long time. Of course, that challenge, of course, has been due, of course, to several positions. So, of course, have been and will continue to challenge Donald Trump to that boxing match, and of course, still continue to do so. Still continue to do so. That is just something where we have, of course, to be in the conclusive side of things. Where we are now, appellate. Of course, that is just something where we gotta be now. Look at that beautiful. Isn't that just holy? Right there. Civilization is a privilege. Imagine all the bridge builders, all the bridge builders, public workers who brains and muscle, of course, build those bridges, build thousands of bridges across North America. Gotta include them in the steps, Gotta be including them. And I guess this piece of art embellishes a bit here. Kind of cool. You can even work out, I guess. I like it. Circles. Yeah. I like circular stuff. Circles, But this, my brothers and sisters, what is this? What is this? Come on. What is this? I give the benefit of the doubt that it was, of course, the wind or whatever, but please, just don't leave like that. It's just the public, you know, we got public works, we gotta get doing with the public works for that. That's how we got public works, just don't try not to do that. Please, people that, of course, gotta go with that, and that's just where we are now. And I love cranes, I love cranes. How many cranes now in operation across North America? Some cranes more than others, some cranes bigger than others, I guess, but they all have a little bit of that purpose, I guess. How beautiful cranes, I just love the cranes, you know. That's just something which we have, you know, to do, and that's just something which we gotta get doing with that. And that's just something which we gotta get drilling, you know. It's something which you have to, of course, conquer mentally, be about, you know. So it's actually what we got, you know. So, of course, taking a little bit of time again to just revise, and, of course, be revisionist about, of course, the revisions. So revising, of course, all the theoretical protocols which we are now, of course, in the mind, keeping in mind that that is our most important point today. Today that has to be the priority. That has to be, of course, the priority that we must work to have reestablish the best, most economic, cordial financial relations with the United States. That's just what it is. That's just what we have to do. From now till tomorrow. But for now and tomorrow, I mean, until it's fixed. You cannot negotiate with that. That's a non-negotiable. It's just a constant. Just like the pi symbol, you know. Just like the pi symbol. The pi symbol, of course, is representative, of course, of the dynamic, the ratio, and the circumference. The ratio is 3.1416. So that is always the same. It's not fluctuating. It doesn't change. Thus, and has been, well, at least to be clear, specifically historically accurate, it has been so at least since the dissolution of the British Empire after the Second World War, you know, after the Second World War, since about 75 years after the Second World War. So just to be clear, of course, because when the British Empire had more power and more influence and more dominion, then that was a bit different. Let's say for the past 75 years, it has been so since the dissolution of the British Empire. But it is so today, and it has been so for decades, and will be so at least, I guess, until we establish a world federation, just like in the Fifth Element movie. You know, the Fifth Element has got that world federation republic, and the world comes together in a republic. It's science fiction, and there is associations for a world government and whatever have you. But for now, I'm not going to discuss that. If you want to commission or work on a potential world governance, then we can discuss it. I guess the UN was the basis, and others before or even now. But I'm not going to go into that. What I'm going to go into is that I predicted what's happening now generally, in a general manner, and that our main interest is to establish the best, most cordial relations with the United States. So again, you cannot argue with that, and you cannot say no to that. Because it's just like the constant in mathematics, the pi, again, not the edible pi, but the pi symbol, which represents the proportional reality of relations between the circumference and the diameter. It's always 3.1416, and it continues ad infinitum, and it's represented by the letter N, which has like two heads, two faces, and kind of like an N for Norman, natural neurodivergence, Normandy, or neurotypical. The N letter, right, has like two heads, two heads, one different face, but it's like two-headed N, two-faced N. The heads kind of look different in a way. So that's our coming empire will have that kind of two-headed, two-faced, and flag spotted. Whenever I spot the flag on my marches, I gotta show mine on. That added up, and that's just how we go and how we do, and that's just pledge your allegiance, and that's just how we are now, and how we incrementally, of course, be, and in all the situational awareness where we are today for the life-affirming actions. Have got to be grateful for myself, having survived COVID. I live every day carpe diem, but I have strategy for tomorrow, and my strategies for the collective North American civilization, and extending them to the NORAD NATO complex, the 32 member nations of NATO, such as the total mobile defense theory, which when we add the S, that means that the TMDT, Total Mobile Defense Theory, TMDT, Total Mobile Defense Theory, when we add the S, that means that we added on the S becomes inactionable practice that we implement, and it becomes a full implemented system. And I created it, designed it, produced it back in 2017 when I crossed Canada coast to coast, and it has to be a mass public-private partnership, such as my dream, the Dancing Goddess and the Dragon Kingdom, which has to be, of course, a dream appellated to all the telecommunications institutions, financial institutions, banking institutions, sports and fitness institutions, of course. From here to Hawk Island, N.A.C.W.P, back to what I was saying, finalizing it. Now, all our politicians in foreign affairs, the number one priority has to be to work with our brothers and sisters in the USA for common financial, economic, security, and liberty implementations and protocols, and finding the solutions and solving the current crisis, because it's a crisis, and 75% of our goods have been for decades and are today and will be exported to the United States. The European Union is undergoing also economic financial situations, and economic financial situations problems. They're not going to be able to absorb, or any other countries. They're forming BRICS unions, and they're forming unions outside of the NATO sphere. So if you're going to find any country, Mr. Carney, which is probably going to be inside of NATO, but even then, all the countries of NATO, if they absorb any from our goods, it's probably going to be 5-10% more than that. Maybe you can find 5 or 10 outside. That still leaves about 50, So that is just something what we got to be doing with that. That is just something what we have, of course, to be drilling on the go, and we got to get doing on that, and we got to get doing on the majestic influence and confluence of all the civilizational aspects where we are, and that's where we are now, to get doing on that drill for the go. So what I'm going to do is, usually I stay on this route. I'm just going to change it and go on the other side, because I think it's a lot of shade here. So I want to be more in the sun, because it's going towards the spring. So I want to get more sun, because I noticed that on that side, there's more shade. Although I love a little bit of shade sometimes, but not today, because we got to get it, of course, on the shade sometimes when it's not sunny, but I got to get it on that go. So that's what we're going to get doing on that locker row, to get doing on that go, So that's just something on the left and right, and we got to get on that appellation, and we got to get on that XYZ, and got to get it on that drill, for the bacon, and for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the firefighters, and all those involved, in the discussions that are on now, to get it on the drill for all the manifestation on the go now. It's all the truckers, the butchers, the bakers, and they gotta get a little bit of that love in now too. And here I got more sun, but although it's on the other side, I'm gonna stay and get a little bit on the back of the neck, and it feels good, and temperature's dropping, and sunset is coming. So always gotta be that appellation when they got it, and sometimes you just gotta live with that gratitude in the moment. And back to geopolitics. So back to what I was saying, I predicted what's happening now in a general manner, but what I did not predict was, of course, that there's going to be a deterioration of relations with the United States, the USA. And since August 1st, it gives me goosebumps on the body every time I discuss it. You know that the White House, of course, Trump administration, we are now designated since August 1st as an unusual, an extraordinary threat. What we are remiss about, and what we're rescinded about, and what is being reproached, is that the lack of coordination with law enforcement agencies of the US, basically I guess the RCMP, lack of coordination, I guess the RCMP, a beautiful blue. The RCMP is kind of the co-equivalent of the FBI. We got a fuse merged them. Well, of course, the FBI, the RCMP, coordination kind of implies that there has to be a cooperation. But sometimes you cooperate just to share ideas or theories or information. When you coordinate, you have, of course, to cooperate as well. But coordination implies more action, while cooperation can imply strictly information, technique, or knowledge, right? Wisdom, understanding, and information. But when you coordinate, you take direct action, joint action, right? So when you cooperate, you don't necessarily coordinate, but when you coordinate, you kind of automatically also cooperate. So the words there, of course, are the coordination vis-a-vis transnational criminal syndicate organized groups. That's the motive, the reason why tariffs on Canadian goods were increased in August 1st, 2000 of this year. Of course, and why we're designated as an unusual and extraordinary threat. Can you imagine that? Since August 1st of 2025, it's been 39 days now. We're 38 days. We're designated Canada as an unusual and extraordinary threat. You realize how serious it is, and it's mentioned there in that black and white paper on the White House government official items, is that, of course, due to the fact that the fentanyl which has crossed into Canada has tripled compared to last year, and that could have potentially killed 16 million Americans. That could have potentially killed 16 million Americans. Can you imagine? That fentanyl that crossed tripled, and that it could have killed potentially 16 million Americans. And what more and more, I'm labeling, classifying fentanyl not as a drug but as a bioweapon, because it doesn't make sense to me. Because how I perceive drug trade is for financial, monetary, money, of course, commercial matters. For commercial, monetary, commercial, financial matters, right? You would want the person to keep buying the drugs. But if the persons are dying, and if there's so many deaths, so many overdoses, so many problems caused by fentanyl, it doesn't make sense that you know what I mean? It seems that the tempering with it, it's converting it from a drug into a bioweapon. More and more I'm classifying it as an actual bioweapon and less as an actual drug. Because it doesn't make, from the drug trade perspective, that's a lion, Lion, and this is electric vehicle here in Quebec. So more and more I'm classifying fentanyl as a bioweapon, because it doesn't make sense. That so many people are dying off of this fentanyl. It's so deadly, right? It just something doesn't add up to me. So our main interest is to have the best, most cordial economic, social, financial relations with the United States. That is just how it is. One cannot say no to that. You have to say yes to that. So you can't argue with that. We have to establish the best, most cordial relations with the United States, right? You cannot say no to that. You cannot object. And that's why from now on, when it comes to foreign affairs, I'm not discussing domestic affairs. The priority, that is the number one priority has to be to work to have the best relations with the USA. And the USA, you also vis-a-vis Canada, although you have a border with Mexico, is to have the best, most cordial relations with us. It's a reciprocal geopolitical foreign affairs relationship. That's why Uncle Connie the King is absent. Even the statistics of the trade, the labor is not, three-quarters, more than 75% of our exports go to the United States. It's not, it's not something where you have, this causes, it's just not the same. You don't have the appellation where you have, of course, to be interjected, of course, in all the capabilities where we are now, to be now, of course, on the side of the things where we got, to be, of course, aware of all the situation where we have now, of course, to get it on the situational awareness where we are, of course, on that level of being, and that level of being is, of course, something which we, of course, are the plurality of course of just to say how we are, in this all the life affirming situational aspects. As a North American collective, principally to form and constitute, of course, the fusion, of course, of the complementary fusion where we are now the dynamics, in this dynamic. And this dynamic constitutes the dynamical appellation of all the parts that make us an emergent civilizational complex, a new civilizational complex which is not totally divorced but is distinct from Western civilization. Is not totally divorced but is distinct from Western civilization, right? So we're not divorced, but we are distinct from Western civilization. So that is just something which you have, of course, to be mindful about. We're not divorced, but we are distinct. I think that's a nice red fresh paint there. Kind of looks nice and fresh. So now we're gonna delve into a little bit of a parallel theory as important, but just to finalize, so that because it's important to repeat, because it's the geopolitical truth, is the foreign affairs relations truth, that we have to establish the most cordial economic, social relations with the United States. Fundamentally, that's of course what we have to be doing with that, and that's just how we have to be doing there, of course, in all the life-affirming matters where we are now, to just get it on the go, and that's it. And that's just how we have to be together as a collective civilizational complex. And of course, this collective civilizational complex is not divorced, but is distinct from Western civilization. So the distinction comes from us being a new civilizational complex, but without being divorced from Western civilization, right? Just to understand fully where the dynamics of the North American civilizational complex, the philosophy, right? It's a philosophy. It's not just a theory, basically. It's a philosophy, but it's a theory, but it's a reality in aspect. It's a reality, right? So this reality is that we constitute a civilizational complex, which is not divorced, but is distinct from Western civilization. So distinct, not divorced. Us in North America, in the North American collective. That's what we, of course, have to have it. That's what we got to get doing with that. So that is just where we have, of course, to be, of course, now in the situational aspects, right? In the geopolitical, the situation of us North Americans is that the philosophy, the situation is that we constitute a collective civilizational complex. That is just how we have to be doing it. And so we have our common interests, right, as a collective. So these common interests constitute this collective macro interest, and then we have the individual as sovereign, right, as a sovereign individual citizen, and then we have the macro at the macro level, which constitute the population of almost 400 million if we include Mexico, or more than 500 million, more than 500 million. And of course, all ALL who come to join us here, all who come to join us here, to get on the go now and get it on the drill and get it on the go. So that is just, of course, the realities of where we are now. That is just the realities of where we are now. So this is the reality, the geopolitical reality, which cannot be negotiated with, it's a constant, right? So now we're going to delve into the DMAA a bit, enough to fully comprehend the DMAA. So one more note to those on the left, on the right, in the center, center left, center right, on both in Canada and the United States, is to think about what I just said, that constant, that we must strive to have the best, most cordial relations with each other. That's why my way to fuse Canada and the United States best as a mass public-private partnership, to create a common currency, the UE, just parallel like the European Union did, but with our 21st century and the realities of 2025, of which many of us, including myself, are financially stressed and on the go, but morale, and joy is something which is important in all the appellations where we are now. And so I admire some beautiful garden. I wish I will. If I will have money, I would get that house. We're gonna come to it there. With the house where I would buy it. My anonymous friend, of course, to be here on the lake, and have on the lake. It's not a lake. Correction. It's a river. We have lakes, many lakes, but Of course, a little part it could be looking like a lake, but it's a big river which surrounds the island of the Hawk Island. Of course, Hawk Island, an island of the snake. So of course, that big river is of course the situational aspect what we have now. And there's a house there, which I will, as my anonymous friend would love, to be by the water, and it has a weeping willow. Weeping willow, a weeping willow. The tree that weeps, cries, weeps, as in the verb. And the house is right there, and it was put on the market again. So if I would have a minute, I will get her that house there. Anyways, regardless. The DMAA, the direct military assistance or action. It's not just a theory, it's a philosophy, it's a frame of reference. It's of course a reference, a philosophy, and of course something which we have of course to establish on the where we got to get doing with that, and that is just where we are of the frame of reference, where we are of course now to of course fully implement and fully get on the side of these little matters that be, to get on that domain, you get it on that go, and getting on that left and right, and on that appellation where we are to get on that doer, and the doers and the butchers, the bakers, the cooks, firefighters, plumbers, electricians, and all that jazz, which we have of course to get doing now with a little bit of rock and roll and jazz. More rock and roll than jazz. Turn your heads left and right. Sometimes the brakes malfunction. That's why I always try, sometimes they can come fast, the cars can just come on that side, and that's just what we gotta do, and a little bit of that rock and roll. What is that? Oh, I thought that's a hawk. It's not. I know my hawks, when it flips the wings, it was just because the sun was hitting right on it, and usually I don't see hawks here, Usually I don't see hawks, H-A-W-Ks, and one time when I have some more money, this is open. What happened? I hope they didn't close. I'm gonna go check. So I wanted to come for a long time. I wanted to come here. Am I gonna be able to cross? I'm gonna look left and right. I gotta go to the side. I gotta wait a bit. I guess maybe it's worth the wait. I wanna go check that out. I wanted to come here for a long time. Oh yeah, no. Left and right. Oh yeah, it is. I remember it's been like several times I passed by it. Oh, because it's Tuesday, le mardi, Tuesday. So it's just that Tuesday they're closed, but I don't think they're closed like forever. It's been a long time I wanted to come here, so long. I said I'm gonna come and I'm gonna enjoy eating and maybe with my anonymous friend, but I good to know that Tuesdays is closed Tuesday, and that's the house where for my anonymous friend, and then we're gonna get into the DMAA, direct military assistance and action. This one would be great. If I would have now money, I would call now and just get it. If I would have the money, I would have now. I would get it, I will get it now, I will get it now. See, there it is. There it is, this one. 438-880-2013, 438-880-2013, 438-880-2013, 438-880-2013. That's what it is with that, 438-880-2013. That's how we gotta do it, and that's what I will get it here, That's how we gotta get it, man. I'll get her this whipping willow there. Whipping willow, see? I'll get her right there with that, and that's where, you can take a bath, and I guess you have a little bit of sea goes down there. So this house will be actually perfect for her. If I would have some billions in the bank account, I would call and I would just buy it right away. I would negotiate a bit, haggle a bit, bargain a bit, but that's perfect for her. Here, the whipping willow. So Beyonce and Donald Trump, me and Donald Trump, we're gonna fight it. We're gonna get it on that go, and that's what it is with that, and that's what we gotta get doing on that, and we gotta get it on that go to get it doing, and to get it now for the left and for the right. And this is what I would give it right here, the whipping willow, and I would have a place, maybe have maybe a place for me there as well, or somewhere else closer. And that's what it is with that, and that's what it is for the go. And that's something where we have, of course, the domain here to get on the go now, to get it on the left and on the right. And that is just, of course, the position there, and that's just the position, and the river passing by. This would be just perfect for my anonymous friend, perfect for my anonymous friend. That's just how we gotta be doing it, is that XYZ, XYZ with that, and the dynamics, of course, which we are, to be conclusive and to be on the level where we got, to getting on the go and getting on the left and on the right, and then get back in the middle. DMAA, direct military assistance and action, get ready. DMAA, direct military assistance and action, is of course my theory protocols. It is a frame of references. It is a theoretical, it's a work tool. It's a tool of working for NATO vis-a-vis past of reflection and in animus consuelo liber, in animus consuelo liber, in animus in consuelo liber, in animus in consuelo liber is the Latin, of course, motto of NATO. A mind unfettered in deliberation, a mind unfettered in deliberation. Animus in consuelo liber, a mind unfettered in deliberation. That's the motto of NATO. And DMAA, or a direct military assistance or action, direct military assistance or action, direct military assistance or action or assistance, DMAA. The direct military action or assistance is not just a philosophy, it is a working tool, it is a theoretical framework, a point of reference for past action or assistance of NATO vis-a-vis non-NATO member countries on conflicts, because the only time that Article 5 was invoked was in September 11th. Article 5 was only invoked September 11th. So of course, that is just what it is now. So of course, it was only invoked September 11th. So basically, of course, in compromisance, where we are now in concordiate for future points of reference, where we are, of course, to co-educate and co-relate and co-establish this working tool as a protocol for future potential action or assistance vis-a-vis NATO, and whatever with NATO getting involved in conflicts such as the conflict in Ukraine, because of course Ukraine is not part of NATO, right? But it's not necessary that it's Ukraine. It could be other points of references, other points of references. So the other point of references is, of course, something like the Yugoslavian conflicts, the Yugoslav wars, Serbia, for example, So these are just part of the explanations. So this is, of course, super important to fully understand. So you have to take the theory, you have to take the protocols, and then you make yourself a note, and then you take the conflicts which I'm explaining, you put them point by points, and then you make, of course, an assessment. So that assessment where we are now, of course, it is the concomitant point, of course, where we are concomitant of all the evaluations, where we are, of course, where we get on the going, of course, to be doing with the references, of course, of the appellation where we are now. So basically, it is the whole situational approach where we are to be discussing the DMAA, the direct military assistance and action, right? So now that you have a little bit of frame of reference, we're gonna have to fully discuss it. And of course, you have to fully realize that it's a crucial moment for the DMAA to be incorporated in NATO at the highest echelons of NATO. Direct military assistance and action, or action. Again, I have to stipulate and make it clear enough that it has nothing to do with humanitarian aid. I thank you, my anonymous friend, for the discussion we had about 2-3 weeks ago, where, of course, it was sounded that the sounding it sounded like it was not empathetic, incompassionate. It's not that. It's that you have to realize that it has nothing to do with humanitarian aid, providing providing food, providing sanitations, providing hygienic products, providing, for example, baby kits, beautiful, providing such elements that are humanitarian or aid, strictly military aid or assistance. Either or it could be both. For example, a concrete example is Canada assisting Ukraine. We provided military assistance, training, armored vehicles to wage war, drones and munitions and weapons, right? Weapons and munitions. While Ukraine was not part of NATO, no NATO member country has taken action. Action, for example, in Afghanistan, in Libya, Serbia, with the planes of NATO bombarding. That's action. Considered action is direct military strikes, for example, by F-16s of NATO. Bombardment by NATO planes, F-16s or other planes, right? When it's assistance, so it's either or. The DMA is direct military assistance or action or assistance, either assistance or action, or one of those, action or assistance, or it can be both, right? It can be also both, action and assistance. And that's the four letter, the direct military action and assistance. And the fifth one is, in parentheses, is the potential consequence of taking NATO having in the past undertaken direct military action and assistance, or of course in the future. So it's a frame of reference for the future as well. Potentially, right? It's a theory, but it's more than a theory. It's a theoretical philosophy and protocols to be established as protocols for future action, whether to take action or to assist in, again, DM, direct military action or assistance. And the C, in parentheses, is the consequence that this potentially can create. Such, of course, the consequence can be, of course, that there's the transnational criminal syndicate organized groups can, of course, potentially be fomented internally and financed by other nation states, by governments, such as XYZ, WABCD, 1, 2, 3, 4, Russia, China, because we assist, not we as all of us, but part of NATO countries assist, for example, Taiwan. And thus, the potential consequence is China engaging in hacking, engaging in providing assistance to transnational criminal syndicate organized groups. And now that we're designated as an unusual and extraordinary threat, I'm going to go back to 2024, last year in October. It hasn't been that long. What happened on October 25th? The RCMP dismantled the biggest ever super lab in Canadian history, and it was run by a transnational criminal syndicate organized group. It was run by a transnational criminal organized group on the 25th of October in Surrey, BC. What if this transnational criminal syndicate organized group organized and had established not only one super lab, but it has 5, and the RCMP dismantled 1. That means there's 4 more to go, right? 4 more to go. Maybe they're across. Maybe one is in Quebec. Maybe one is in Ontario. Maybe one is on the other coast. You know? It could be. So that is the possibilities, right? It could be that only one was dismantled. But it provided enough, it had enough fentanyl and doses to kill the population of Canada twice over, more than twice the population of Canada. That's 88 million people. Can you imagine just one super lab? And the mentioning in the White House there of the black and white, the dictums, the official declaration by the White House and the Trump administration is also due to this growing super labs, drug super labs on Canadian territory. And we've been warned, eh? You can go back records since 2015 about. Since 2015, you can see the RCMP, which is kind of the equivalent of the Mounties, sounding the alarm. The RCMP, the Mounties, sounding the alarm. Even especially more so during COVID, but about since 2015, that there's a growing transnational criminal syndicate organized groups taking root across Canada. And maybe some of these transnational criminal syndicate organized groups are financed paradoxically, due to NATO's past DMAA, direct military assistance or action or assistance. It could be different examples. The most recent example is Ukraine, Israel, potentially Taiwan as well, right? So these are the consequences which can be potentially of the DMAA, a direct military assistance and action. So it's not just a theory. It's a theoretical framework, a philosophy of working philosophy wherein we implement protocols in the future. Beautiful yellow flowers there. Look at that. Beautiful yellow flowers. And this house I really like here. So thinking about that, meditating it, how we're going to incorporate it in the future. Because now we took action vis-a-vis Ukraine. But the DMAA dates a few years back. But of course it has to be included from now until today in all NATO deliberations. And whether we undertake direct military assistance or action has to go via a vote. I always say we would have to vote on it. It would have to be like a referendum, a popular vote, right? Maybe the 32 countries. We got to get 17, right? Because 32 divided by 2, equal vote. That would be one equal vote, because if it goes by population, it's different, right? But the NATO countries would have to vote. That would be, if we got 32, you got to get 17, right? Even if we get 33, we got to get 17 to get the majority. So that's the DMAA. It's a working tool. It's a protocol, a theory, a philosophy. It's a frame of reference, right? A theoretical frame of reference for working and decision making. So it's all that. Of course, I kind of generalize it, summarize it, but in consequence, it's more in depth, more analytical, because of my long geopolitical discussions. I can spend hours and hours and hours and hours, and I spend hours and hours analyzing geopolitical events on the daily, and myself with the financial stress, with my workout routines as an N.A.C.W.P, I need more support, and the support necessary requirement for volunteers and XYZ, to be building the empire together. Consequently, my dream, the public-private partnership, which includes all of this. What I am is not just an artist, an athlete, and beautiful garden here. Somebody who loves gardens and yellow flowers, and who's androgynous, pansexual, who's a democratic Republican Democrat. The Imperial Republican Democrat for the 63O is universal revolutionary centrism. My centrism is 21st century, pro-labor and love. Universal revolutionary centrist is 21st century, and sometimes we gotta focus with some solutions. This garden is totally beautiful. Somebody's singing there. Singing me some song. I love it. Yeah. So back to the analysis. Back to the DMAA, direct military assistance and action, to finalize it or to make basically a summary of it. So D, direct, M, military assistance or action or assistance, they could be interchanged, AA, right? Of course, it's to be meditated on a case-by-case basis, right? For example, in the case of Ukraine, in the case of Yugoslavia, in other cases where, of course, direct military action or assistance was going to be, of course, and generated by NATO. And that's what it is with that. That's how we gotta get doing with that drill. So, of course, all that formulation and all that, of course, is something where we have to envision of us to be in the future and in the propositions where we are now related, of course, to the dynamics, where we are confluential, where we are to be established in all the dynamical representations and affirmations that it's something which we gotta incorporate in further into NATO as part of the deliberations. The DMAA must be discussed and revised and contemplated, and even the decisions have to be made according to the DMAA. And it's possible C, which stands for consequences, such as the transnational criminal organized groups and the foreign governments fomenting internal riots, discord, and all sorts of other problems internally in Canada, such as maybe, hey, the biggest ever super lab maybe was somehow covertly financed by the secret police, maybe of Russia, maybe of China, of those antagonistic powers and national countries which have a certain power, financial power, military intelligence power, to harm us here. Harm us here. Wow, wow, wow. I just love it. Look at that. Wow. That's just like Napolitan, like the ice cream. And that one in the corner. This is so beautiful. Wow. I just love it. So nice. Just the colors of it. Look at that. Look at that. And they give me hope because they're holding hands. Got some loving. But wow, wow, wow. So beautiful. Makes me think of that Napolitan ice cream. So wow, this is a 9+ here. 9+. Love it. Well, job. Good job. That's the gardens that I want in the 444. We're going to build the 4 together. The Imperial People's Coliseum to be, of course, 11 times bigger. I'm going to discuss now the 4 buildings which I will to build. One of the 4 buildings which I will to build is, of course, the Imperial People's Coliseum on the Canadian-US border. On the Canadian-US border, I will to build the Imperial People's Coliseum. It's going to be 11 times bigger than the Caesar Superdome. The Caesar Superdome is, of course, where it was built. The Caesar Superdome changed names. Before that, it used to be known as the Mercedes-Benz. Before that, as the Louisiana Superdome. It is where several Super Bowls were fought, played, and battled out. One of my favorite Super Bowls is paradoxically when my 49ers lost, known as Super Bowl 47. It has several nicknames, just like I do, aka Bro Bowl, aka Harbor Bowl, aka Blackout Bowl. So it has several nicknames, and of course we're gonna build a massive infrastructure on the Canadian-US border, a massive sports arena, Imperial Sports Coliseum, the People's Imperial Sports Coliseum, to be 11 times bigger, of course, than that Coliseum where my 49ers lost, of course, to the Ravens by 3 points. So that's what we're gonna build 11 times. It's gonna be for sportists in perpetuity. It's a majestic building. It's gonna be so big on the Canadian-US border. And then we're gonna build, in consequence, we're gonna build also the Forgotten Goddess Temple, which is gonna be 11 times bigger than the here in Montreal, Hawk Island. We have what's called, of course, what we have as the St. Joseph's Oratory. The St. Joseph's Oratory. We have the St. Joseph's Oratory. So the St. Joseph's Oratory, we have, of course, the St. Joseph's Oratory. St. Joseph's Oratory. Beautiful pink. Wow. Pink, pink, pink. I love it what you bring. This is also a 9+ here. So many beautiful garden. I want that for the Forgotten Goddess Temple. So much beautiful flowers. Forgotten Goddess Temple. And she doesn't need me to build or anybody to build her the temple. She dances with her brother son, and she's got the pyramids, you know. She's got the pyramids. But she credited this piece of dust, yours truly, Adrian Hana Dragon, trillions of kisses. It's always God bless. And God has blessed our empire. It's always God bless. And Goddess kiss, God bless, and God has GODDSS kiss. I got those trillions of kisses, KISSEX, kisses from the Forgotten Goddesses. I got those trillions of marching steps, and that is on that rock and roll, and that is just what we do, of course, now, of course, to be appellated, and of course, to do, and to, of course, conjugate all our pluralities, what we are now, to be satisfied, and to build also the pyramid, House of the Dragon, that scarlet, crimson and scarlet are, of course, shades of that RED, red, my favorite color, what I said, and Rainbow People's Palace for my fellow neurodivergent community, Aspies and autistics, and also my fellow LGBTQ community, bisexuals, gays, and me, I'm androgynous pansexual. So let's build a 4 on the Canadian-US border, where me and Donald Trump are going to inaugurate it. We're going to get that fighting, and we're going to fight in a sportsmanlike conduct boxing match. And I got those red gloves in the back. I have been them, and will continue to challenge Donald Trump to a boxing match, and have been ever since 2018, since Donald Trump made the first decision, to implement tariffs on Canadian aluminum and steel. That was a mistake geopolitically. That was a geopolitical mistake, and of course that mistake, these are nice also, can be corrected, as I made so many mistakes, that's by rock and roll. So pledge allegiance, pledge allegiance to our family. Pledge allegiance to our family. And see, nobody's working out there, but see, there's a bit of there's some wheels, and somebody is. I think somebody is. I see it blurred. Yeah, that's good. Somebody else is going and coming there, and that's good. Hey, wow, see, they built public gym. Take advantage, and we're gonna build more public gyms like that, and gonna embellish the cities, and we're gonna do lots of good via my DRT, debt refusion theory. Now I'm gonna discuss the DRT, debt refusion theory. We have to implement it binationally. It's part of the bipolar strategy for the total BDD, benevolent dominance and dominion of via the fusion of Canada and the United States into the Imperial 63 complex for total world BDD, benevolent dominance and dominion, and geopolitical checkmate by fusing Canada and the United States into the 63 Imperial complex. The DRT, we have to implement it binationally, because due to the fact that majority of the citizens have 4 main stresses. Look at that beautiful, colorful tree with the sun shining on it. So the 4 main problems which we are faced with, majority of the population, myself included, although more or less depending on what exactly we're discussing about. But of course we're faced with several problems. Some of course those problems are these, so I'm going to enumerate them now. So one of the problems is of course economic. So now we're living in record debt, credit card debt. We have credit card debt, we have the growing cost of living, the cost of bacon, cheese, bread. All the prices of goods are increasing. Most of the prices are good, not all, but most of the prices are increasing. Price of bread, of lettuce, of butter, or cheese, or milk, they're increasing, right? A lot. Even my wafers went up. So the cost of living, growing cost of living by the cost of the goods which we're buying are increasing. The cost of rents are going up, including my rent. My rent went up also, but I'm not going to say by how much. I'm just going to say that it's between $6 and $10. $6 and $10. So between $6 and $10. $6 and $10, So I'm not going to complain, because it is what I estimate, and it is below the maximum required. And of course we have a standard here. We have a standard, or if you will, we have a certain imposition of restrictions, a certain percentage, which it cannot be over that percentage. So we have a standard, if you will, for the rents. So my rent went up between 6 and 10. Look at that beauty. Isn't that just beautiful? Of course, the credit card debt is increasing, and the stagnation of the salaries. So these 4, the stagnation of the salaries, we got more and more strikes. The growing cost of living, the growing cost of rents, is the construction workers that build the houses. And of course, these 4 problems: growing cost of rents, growing cost of living, stagnation of the salaries, and credit cards. Even now, credit cards are being swiped across North America. So that's why my DRT is the solution, or something similar to my debt refusion theory is the solution. The D stands for D, debt, R, refusion, T, theory. My debt refusion theory also integrates monetary integration theory, which is the financial theory which was integrated in the European Union. implemented in the European Union. So my DRT includes the MIT monetary integration theory, right? That's what you have to keep in mind, which is the theory, financial theory, which was of course implemented in the European Union in the 90s. The Europeans, Germany, Italy, France, Belgium, they destroyed their national central banks. They created a multinational central bank known as the ECB, the European Central Bank, right? Many nations no longer have neither their old currencies nor their national central banks. So we're going to do the same in my DRT. Includes that theory inside the D, debt, R, refusion. T theory is integrated, that theory which I mentioned, of course. So we're going to take all the public and the private debt, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, including my $10,000. We're going to add it all up together, do the addition of all the public private debt, Canada, United States. Gorgeous, 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 beautiful. 9 out of 10, that's a beauty. So we're going to add it with all the public private debt of the United States, all that money up, we're going to add it all up. We're going to, of course, create a new currency, a new central bank, the Imperial Central Bank, and we're going to, of course, create a currency, of course, called the UE, the Universal Exchange Unit. The Universal Exchange. So all the public private debt, we're going to add it all up. We're going to, of course, convert it all into the US dollar. So we're going to add it coast to coast, my 10,000, your 10,000. We're going to add it all up. All the public private debt, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, Canada. We're going to convert it into US dollars. And we're going to, of course, add it with all the United States debt. We're going to create the UE. U.universal, E.exchange, U.UE. U.universal, E.exchange, U.UE. The Universal Exchange Unit. UE. U.universal, E.exchange, U.UE. The UE. U.universal, E.exchange, U.UE. The UE. The Universal Exchange Unit is going to have the value of the US dollar, is going to have the value of the US dollar. The value of the US dollar. The UE. The Universal Exchange